Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and The Fool.
I'm gonna have a bit of fun this one. I've been, so this is very, incautious. This isn't something a professional psychologist should do, but I'm not a professional psychologist, so...
Incautious is potentially the word. I don't know what you're planning to do, but...
It's irresponsible. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay, so I want to compare being overweight to a mental illness.
I did put back on 10 pounds, so... Yeah.
No, in a way you might not think, though. Okay, so...
No, I do need to lose that 10 pounds to put back on.
So, since about the 70s, obesity has gone way up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but we're treating this like a mental illness, right? So obesity has gone up, but that's in the data, right? That's due to better detection methods, right? Because before we weren't able to properly identify obesity, but now we can. And so that's why the graph shows an increase in obesity. And now you say, okay, obesity is bad for you. A lot of people are dying. More people are dying than ever, right? People are dying young. But there's this huge stigma about being obese. People make fun of you. They yell at you. They shame you for it. And it's that stress from the shame of being overweight. Seeing all these skinny ads and skinny normative movies and all that. It's the stress that is killing people young. And so we need to have movies where we have more positive representations of fat people, and we need to be able to talk about being overweight so that fat people don't feel bad being fat, and then they don't feel as stressed, and they don't die as young, and they don't get as sick more easily, because stress is horrible for you, right?
You're making a parody statement. However, it's also not parody, because that is also just blatantly what's gone on.
Wait, what do you mean? So you think that obesity kills you because of the shame and or you mean that's the direction that activists have pushed?
Yes.
No, I'm basing this on the fat activist movement, which started in the 80s, I think, or the 70s.
But there are remarkable parallels to other things within that. Is it just a standard model of used for many things?
Well, the thing is, it's a very good way to...
guilt people into supporting...
To push whatever narrative you want, right? Yeah. So the classic thing, let's use transgenderism, because that's the most obvious link here, right? The classic thing people use is they compare it to left-handedness.
Yeah.
So we didn't allow people to be left-handed. They're afraid to show that they're left-handed. And then time went by, and suddenly more and more people, it became less of a stigma, more and more people became left-handed, and then it plateaued at about 10% of people are left-handed.
12.
Sure. I said about 10%.
Yeah. That's the one stat I have stuck in my brain that is 12% for some reason.
So about 10% of people are left-handed. And that's where it plateaued. And so you said, well, okay, so it's not that there was a suddenly, seed oils were introduced and now everyone's left-handed and it's messing with their brain. It's just we didn't have a way of detecting it. People didn't feel safe. Now they feel safe and it goes up.
And now we're making scissors for them and bread knives.
Yeah, so with trans people, they say, okay, well, of course we're seeing a massive increase because it's being destigmatized. And trans people, they kill themselves even after they transition in much higher numbers than the regular population because of the stigma of being trans. And it's just like autism. They do the same thing. They say, we're not seeing this massive increase in autism. Our detection methods are getting better, right?
With the autism, it almost feels like someone released a video on this. We're more of like, there was a certain percentage of the brain like activity, like this can be said with dyslexia, where you can have dyslexic tendencies, but you need to get over a certain threshold to actually be diagnosed with dyslexia. And then people are like, oh, I have dyslexia. It's like, you don't have educational disability diagnosed dyslexia, you just can't spell.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the case with autism. It's like, oh, I have
troubles identifying social cues. I'm autistic.
Yeah, I'm on the lower end of the autistic spectrum, therefore I'm autistic.
It's like, I know an autistic kid who can't poop, and I've talked about this before. He beats up his dad to get through the pain of the constipation he's in. And he bites people randomly, and he's screaming all the time. He can't speak. It's like, that is very different from, I like computers, and I can't tell if people are flirting with me, or something like that. That's a very different degree. And that's where Asperger's came from. Asperger's was meant to be high-function autism, which was basically you have to learn social cues rather than... And I guess it was meant to be distinguished from... This wasn't why it was created, but there is this weird overlap between cluster B personality and autism, where in many ways they're opposites, but they share a lot of the same symptoms, right? Like psychopaths are kind of cluster B, right? And they're separate, but the psychopaths, ASPD is cluster B, and ASPD is very similar to psychopathy. I'm sticking to my guns. Psychopathy. So ASPD is very similar to psychopathy, and
ASPD?
antisocial personality disorder.
Okay.
Yeah. You get angry easily. You get in fights all the time. You don't think about others' feelings. You don't take them into account. Most criminals have it, basically. Most violent criminals tend to have it. And you have troubles detecting other people's emotions when you're a psychopath or when you have ASPD, right? You don't think about them. You don't consider them. I'm doing my own thing. But the thing about the difference between cluster B and autistic is they're both I'm doing my own thing. But with cluster B, it's you have to do my own thing. Whereas with autistic people, it's like I'm doing my own thing.
They're off on cloud nine.
It's like I'm not paying attention to you. You do whatever.
Yeah.
I'm doing my own thing. And I heard this great description. It was on Reddit. Someone had quoted it from somewhere else, and they don't remember where they found it. But it was the whole culture war, feminism, like the new wave of feminism, culture war, all of it is borderline personality disorder women arranging a mass assault against autistic men. And I thought that was a perfect description because you've got these guys that just want a game, and then it's like, you have to let us in. They're like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. And then you have to do this. It's like, well, I don't want to do that. I'm just doing my own thing. It's like, no, you have to do this, or you're a sexist. And then they get driven out. And it's funny, never happened. It might have happened if train spotting had remained super popular. Because that's the thing that the weird autistic guy does, right?
Yeah.
And I'm using autistic in the very loose sense that we shouldn't be right now, right? Because
you're doing what I said, the categorization of autism.
Because this is actually where I'm going with the fat thing. Another story. So Hong Kong. It's an interesting account. Now, this guy could be lying, right? But there's a doctor, and he was trained in the United States, I think it was. He was a Hong Kong doctor, so Chinese guy. He goes back to Hong Kong, and he specialized in anorexia. And so he's like, okay, I'm excited I think he was a psychiatrist, but he's like, okay, I'm excited to be helping out people with anorexia. So he goes to Hong Kong, sets up his practice. He's helping people out because he does more than anorexia, but he's a specialist. And so he's like, okay, now I just need to help out people with anorexia. It's like, does no one have any anorexia? He's like looking around like, you have anorexia? No, you have anorexia? He goes into the model industry. He goes to models like, any of you have anorexia? They're like, no. And then he came across this handful of cases, like 6 to 12 women, something like that they were super skinny and they fainted all the time. And he's like, okay, these people I can help. But they're in the hospital because they hadn't. It's like, no, I don't want to be skinny. Eating food makes me vomit. And the doctor's like, yeah, there's something wrong with their stomach. And so he's like, the closest thing, okay, but at least I can help that somewhat. But anorexia was not about beauty. The very few cases of anorexia in Hong Kong were not about beauty. They didn't feel fat. It wasn't dysmorphia. Instead, it was that food repulsed them.
Yeah.
It was like this disgusting thing that they couldn't keep forced down. It was like if everything was made of Brussels sprouts. Right.
Yeah. My Little Pony. I watched a video on My Little Pony yesterday. And so the princess, she wants to solve friendship issues. And in one of the episodes, there are no problems in the kingdom for her to solve. And so she goes insane and creates this magical doll, which everyone wants it. And they fight over for it. And so then she can go solve the problem because she had no problems to solve.
Yeah. So there was
like this guy went specifically searching for this specific thing, but it's like there's no problem solved. I need this to solve.
This doctor, he didn't cause problems. Yeah. He was a good guy. So what happened was a model with anorexia at some point, or something similar. She was very skinny, and she was quite beautiful. She fainted, and I think she died. Hong Kong model. Yeah. She died on the runway. It was or in the street. It was something like that. And then that was all over the news because beautiful young woman. That's a news story.
Yeah.
All over the news. She didn't eat enough. Dangerous. She didn't eat enough. Anorexia blew out of control in Hong Kong. Reached American levels. A bunch of American specialists flew in. Started talking about anorexia is out of control here. We'll help you out. It's another case.
That's the social contagion.
Sort of. I don't think it is, but
well, what is it? It's not anorexia. Multiple personality disorder.
Dissociative identity disorder. Yeah,
I'm saying multiple personality because that's what it was when this happened. There's one case and then it exploded after this case got super popular.
Well, there's a movie made about a woman.
Yeah.
And the movie was called was it called Lucy? I can't remember. But there was a movie made about a woman, and then dissociative identity disorder cases exploded. So what was said at the time was, no, this movie hasn't caused dissociative identity. Well,
Made people see it more. And
it became visible, and people were like, oh, that's me. I need to go get help for this. Okay, maybe that's true. But here's the next thing. So it was Sri Lanka, I believe. There was a massive earthquake, I think it was, and tons of people died. Or maybe it was during a tsunami. I can't remember. There was a massive disaster in, I think it's Sri Lanka, but I don't remember the country. But there was a massive disaster. Sri Lanka is the island off of India.
Yeah.
There was hundreds of thousands of people displaced from their home. Thousands of people died. Horrible. There was international relief from all around the world to help these people out. And one of the groups for relief were a group of crisis responders specialized in PTSD. And so they came in and they debriefed the people. They went in and they said, so this is something that happens a lot in traumatic cases. Like if someone's in a house fire, if someone's in a war zone, you get debriefed and you help walk through the trauma, right?
Yeah.
Help you walk through the trauma. And what they found was that the refugees they managed to give this training to had much higher, way higher cases of PTSD, depression, everything else than the people that they didn't get to. Just by simply saying, oh yeah, this could happen and this could happen and this could happen, cases went way up. Different study. This was with people with severe life-threatening injuries coming into the hospital, so emergency cases. You know, you get shot in the street by a drive-by shooting, you get brought to the hospital, that sort of thing. A psychologist was like, can I do an experiment with these people? And they're like, yeah, sure.
Ethics board. It's like, yeah, okay.
Well, she wasn't doing anything nasty. Basically, after they were treated, she had a control group, so the people she didn't interact with.
Yeah.
And then she had another group, and she said, all right. And both groups, she said, I want you to follow up with me in 6 months and tell me how you're doing. Yeah. So the group that she wanted to experiment on, she said, okay, play Tetris. And so within 6 hours of the traumatic experience, these people played Tetris, just played a bunch of Tetris, way less rates of PTSD than people that had nothing done to them. So basically getting distracted in that moment where your mind's still reeling, not thinking about it, that solved the problem. Well, it didn't solve it, but much lower cases.
Yeah. And then turns out years later it's all being compartmentalized and they've got flashes and
well, no, because they were looking at, they were doing longitudinal stuff, and they're like,
yeah,
no, the whole trauma stuff, that's to prevent the flashbacks. They also found, so when PTSD was first invented, right, post-traumatic stress disorder, that was during the Vietnam War, and the people at the time were trying to call it the Vietnam disease because they hadn't seen it in other wars to the same degree.
I thought there, what is called battle shock that the people from World War I and World War II came back with?
Yeah. I'd like to compare that because I'm not sure there. But with Vietnam, I think it must have been even much higher cases or something like that. Or maybe it's just, World War I and II, the degree to which you're up there, it's ridiculous. Now, Vietnam, I've seen the traps that the Vietnamese made, and just thinking about those would give me I wouldn't ever walk in the woods again.
Yeah.
If I had been in Vietnam. I think they're horrifying. I wish they just had a tiger pit or something instead of these unbelievably long metal spikes.
Well, those traps, on a small tangent, were designed to injure, not kill.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It'd be better to have a meat grinder or something than these incredibly thin, long needles that'll just trap you in place for days with rusty metal shoved through you. They're horrible looking. So, now I'm not saying that PTSD is made up. What I'm saying is that the people at the time were trying to figure out why Vietnam was so unusually traumatic compared to other regions, and so they were actually saying, okay, something's unique about Vietnam, so we're going to call it Vietnam disorder. And the theory at the time was that it was because it was an unjust war, because the soldiers didn't believe in what they were fighting for. And now that may be true, it may not. So
there's a bit of child psychology of if let's say there's a little boy running around and he's in his front yard and he runs out onto the street and trips and bruises up his knee.
Yeah.
Now the typical case, there's two things. If his mother's watching, she comes in, it's like, oh, are you okay? And she babies him and he's crying and he's upset and the pain's quite bad and he's brought inside and he's pampered. And it was quite a traumatic experience for him. Now if his dad is supervising and he trips and falls, dad's like, oh, get up, sport.
I was like, run over here.
Yeah.
Um,
And the kid doesn't suffer as much pain, and it's something that happened in the day. And you can sort of see it like a kid falls over and keep on playing. Like the other kid gets up, keep on playing. They run along, they keep on playing. Or if an adult gets involved, he starts crying and the wailing turns longer because he actually realizes he's injured.
I think the injury is the same either way.
Yeah, the injury is the same, but the mental is different.
No, I don't think the mental's different either. So I'll give another example. So, not exactly different. Okay. I think there's layers of mentality, right? So, hysteria. It was a very common condition for like 50 years, right? Where women were fainting left and right. You read all these old Victorian books and women are fainting all over the place.
Yeah.
And people have said, oh, it's because of corsets, right? And now if you can look up videos of corset designers online or people that wear, I don't know what you call them, LARPers, people that wear old-fashioned clothing for various events or because they just do it in their daily life. Fitted corsets don't restrict your breathing, really.
I'd much more be willing to blame the makeup.
Yeah, the toxins in the area. Yeah. Fitted corsets, they don't really restrict your breathing. And even then, it's the tight-laced ones for shows and stuff that would actually be doing it, right? Like if someone's doing some, like Twiggy from the 80s where she had this like 12-inch waist. And that's like, you're going onto set, you do this ridiculous thing for a look that is slightly inhuman on purpose. Yeah. That was the sort of thing that could restrict your breathing. But in general, fitted corsets are much more for lumbar support, I guess, basically.
Yeah.
Give your back. Now, it could weaken your back muscles, potentially. I've seen videos where, like this woman, she has a degenerative spine disease, and so she designs corsets for herself. And she was saying that it doesn't seem to affect her back muscles. It actually gives her the leeway to strengthen them. So I don't even know there. But in theory, there's a reason people don't have an extra set of bones on either side of their spine. Maybe they just didn't get them because they weren't lucky enough. But
yeah. That's one of the things with evolution is there are just paths and things. Like some animals are just better. It's not always a trait. There is just sometimes you didn't go that way.
Yeah, Dawkins has an example of a propeller plane would never evolve into a jet engine because any step towards a jet engine would make a worse propeller plane.
Yeah.
And therefore it would fail. Sometimes to make those giant leaps, you can't do that through evolution. You need to do that through either extreme mutation that then survives and has a bunch of kids, or you have to do that through just being created top down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so evolution, there are paths that aren't available to evolution, basically was Dawkins' point. Yeah. So anyways, corsets, probably not the problem. But what you had happen was hysteria went away around as anorexia was increasing. And so one of the theories is that stress
manifests into
stress is a thing that is a physical. Let's physical isn't quite the right term, but everything's physical in a way, right? Like your brain reacts in a way that's a physical reaction, no matter what. You think a thought, that's a physical reaction. Yeah. So stress is a physical entity. It exists. And the way it expresses itself is based upon the individual, right? So you get kicked in the leg, you go, ow. It's like, well, a French person doesn't go, ow. They go like, whoa, or something. And a Japanese person,
like
if you're excited, you might go like, ah. Like you might not even be, or if you succeed, you're like, yes. And you don't even choose to do it, right? Yeah. You sip a glass of water, you go, ah. That's not something that people do naturally. It's a sort of, well, it is natural, but it's it's sort of like a cultural etching. It's like a subconscious ancestral memory almost. Yeah. And so like a Japanese person, they're like, yatta! They don't go like, yay! Mm-hmm. So even laughter, well, laughter tends to be a bit more, but even then, people's laugh is dependent on who they're around a lot of the time. Yeah. And your laugh can change based on who you respect more. So stress is real, right? And it's this devastating thing. And the outward expression of stress might be hysteria, it might be anorexia, because you know that anorexia is the way you're supposed to experience stress. So the person
stress has an accent.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And so the anorexic person, under this theory at least, you're not going to cure by saying, eat proper amounts, right? Because there's still that now you're going to prevent the destructive behavior, but there is already a destruction within them. And so with the hysteria, you can be like, stop fainting. That's ridiculous.
Get a hold of yourself.
But the person is there's still something that, they might have a heart attack, right? Yeah. Like the anorexic or the hysteric, no matter which path they take, they might be as likely to get a heart attack earlier than normal people, let's say. So with the kid falling, scraping his knee, there's probably the same amount of pain in either instance. Yeah. And the mental anguish might even be similar in many ways. But so the crying, if a kid is crying, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're upset. That means that's the expected response to those around them, right?
Yeah.
And what people do as they become adults, because adults are rational beings, is we say, I'm crying, therefore I must be sad, and that's where that disconnect could occur. But that doesn't mean that, I think anyways, I don't think that means that you can just mind over matter away illness, right? Like it just means that the appropriate response is ideal.
So under this,
you can't just wish away sadness or depression or anxiety. I don't think
under this theory,
yeah,
of is an expression of stress. So with the anorexic, doctor specialist. So you know the case of you take antidepressants, and it's potentially that it's
an anti-inflammatory.
Yeah, anti-inflammatory, and so it's making your brain uninflame.
Yeah.
So with the anti-anorexia doctor, it's someone's taking care of you, someone's focusing on you, and maybe some of their treatments at the same time are helping with stress.
Yeah.
So when I went to a Chinese doctor at one point for her to just give me a check over, it was a very different doctor's experience than any other doctor experience I've ever been to. I've only been to, I think, about 2 different doctors besides the Chinese doctor. But so I go to a regular doctor. And he's like, all right, sit down here, and we just talk about problems. I maybe say, so this is what's wrong. I think it could be this. I think it could be this. And I'm like, all right, take some notes, get some blood work. Let's maybe prescribe something. And he has like maybe 50 patients to see that day or whatever. Like he's seeing a patient every 15 minutes. He has to have you in. He has to have you out. He's trying to help you. He's going through this whole thing. So this Chinese doctor, she books people for about an hour and went through the practice. And she just talks with you and like lie down on this bed. She did acupuncture and it's very calming, giving you personal attention, talking in more detail, discussing the thing with you, exploring it. And the process of her administrations make you feel healthier and reduce stress, which can probably, for a lot of people to see her, those people are probably stressed. And so her administrations make you feel better.
And to add to what you're saying, do not think stress is a minor condition. And do not think it's just something that you can willpower away. It is deadly. It might be the deadliest disease. And
well, I've had the physical symptoms of my hair turning white and falling out when I was stressed.
And I think it's very easy to say, well, if it doesn't take a pill to cure, right, then it can't be that bad of a condition, right? Well, you got to have take the antidepressant yourself, take the anti-inflammatory, take the antibacterial. If it doesn't take any of those, you don't have a problem. It's just, you're just overthinking or something, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the case. I think that perhaps Western medicine puts too much emphasis on thinking that there is one-to-one cures. Like, pill A goes in to problem A and the problem's solved, right? Because pills, for example, have side effects. And you say, well, yeah, because they're affecting whole areas. But theoretically, there could be a treatment without side effect that, like drinking water, there doesn't tend to be this, like maybe you pee more, but there doesn't tend to be massive problems from drinking water, and yet that can solve all variety of things. Someone being kind to you, that as well can cause you to relax, be less stressed, all sorts of things. And it may be like, we have a lot of AIs taking over medicine right now, and they're outproducing. There's a concern right now. They're able to produce novel, important, effective drugs faster than they can be approved by the health administrations at this point. Like they're coming out super fast, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. We'll have a cure for everything. But I was wondering when I heard that news, is this, there's a pill for everything, but is there a pill for anything? Is there actually there's some pills that seem amazing, like vitamin D, aspirin, melatonin, penicillin. Now, but of course, we're like, okay, penicillin kills syphilis of all things. It can solve anything, right? This is amazing. We have the panacea. And then it turned out that bacteria is the toughest organism on Earth, and it adapts super fast to the point where if you have when you take antibiotics these days, if you start an antibiotic program, you have to continue it. You can't stop partway through.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the bacteria will adapt during the process, and then you won't be able to get rid of it with the medication anymore.
Yeah, you have to make sure.
And so if you do like a 3-day course out of 10, you're not going to kill it, and it's going to be immune.
I remember when there's this huge thing in the medical community, is this breakthrough where 49 new kinds of penicillin were discovered from mushrooms. And it's amazing because like our 100 and something amount that we had before were basically all exhausted of usable. And so these extra ones from the mushrooms were this really big thing for us.
Then we have, okay, without getting into any negatives, right? But we have vaccinations, right? Which, it's amazing. You was like, okay, polio's basically gone. Measles basically gone. Mumps basically gone. But the question becomes, what, you know, you need aluminum as an irritant, or you need mercury as an irritant. You need carriers like that are animal proteins a lot of the time, and you wonder what is the drawback to using all these things, and at what point? Okay, cure polio in everyone. That sounds pretty amazing. Cure measles and mumps in everyone. Amazing. They can leave you scarred for life or dead as a child, right? Yeah. Horrible things. Now you have chickenpox vaccines, and you say, is that, you know, some people
die from chickenpox.
Some people die from chickenpox, but it's rare. But there's also shingles as a problem. Yeah. But now I think you're more likely to get shingles if you had chickenpox or something like that in the first place. So the vaccine might actually lead you to shingles, but I'm not sure about that one. And it's not like it leads you more than just getting chickenpox as a kid would, right? It's just, the question is, if you're on a Mars colony where nobody ever had chickenpox, should you still be vaccinating with them with this thing? And there's a reason that they discontinue vaccines as well, right? Like, people don't get rabies vaccines. Only vets do. You don't just give a rabies vaccine out to everyone. Right?
Yeah.
There's cost, of course, to keep in mind.
There's cost, but there also is risks.
And it's painful getting a vaccine, right? Like, it hurts. And the question is, okay, there's an infinite number of diseases. How many vaccines do you want? Like, how many vaccines, like, okay, 5 as a child. Okay, you get your measles, mumps, rubella, polio, and exploding lung syndrome. I don't know. Smallpox, something like that. Yeah. And you say, okay, that seems pretty reasonable. But then it's like, do you need chickenpox? It's pretty rare to be nasty. Most people can handle it. You become immune if you just get it once. Like, it's a
cultural, almost like, I got chickenpox, I went through it.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage in a lot of ways. I think it can make you go blind.
Yes.
But, you know,
that's quite rare too.
It's rare, and it's okay. But, you know, that's going blind. That's nasty. That's 1 in 1,000. Let's give a chickenpox. And then it's like, okay, we've got a common cold vaccine. Do we give that? And then we've got these flu vaccines every year. Do you get your 1 or 2 flu vaccines every year? And, you know, this is sort of a reductio ab absurdum, but at some point you're getting an injection every 5 seconds to keep up with all the diseases, right? And diseases are amazing. They haven't died out for some reason. I mean, polio mostly has, but they adapt, they change, and so we need more vaccines. And we can probably produce vaccines faster than the diseases can adapt in a lot of ways. But the question is, how many do you want? And you look at that with all medications. Like, here's an antidepressant, here's an anticoagulant, here's a coagulant, here's, oh, you've got a liver problem, here, take this medicine. And it's amazing, right? Like, this is miraculous stuff I'm talking about. This stuff will save people's lives. But it's a far stretch. I was thinking about this with dentists and eye doctors. You're going for a bike, you crash your bike, you get up from the crash position, your leg's pointing the wrong direction.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I'm going to go to the doctor. You go to the doctor, they set your leg heals in a few months, you're back on your feet, you're good to go. So, okay, that's a pretty obvious, like, amazing. Doctors are the best thing on earth.
Yeah.
You go to the dentist every year and they're like, you should floss more. And it's, do I need to be doing this? Like, now, okay, my tooth shattered. Go to the dentist. It's like, can you do something? Like, yeah, I can do something. It's awesome. That's amazing. That's what, with a dentist and eye doctor as well. I don't know how this happened, but for some reason they sell the cures to the things they diagnose.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, you need your wisdom teeth out. I can't remember the estimate, but it was like several million cases a year of people getting wisdom teeth removed that don't need wisdom teeth removed. Yeah. And then eye doctors, like, well, you need new glasses. They sell the glasses, right?
I think both with the teeth and the eye doctor, they are considered cosmetic instead of medical.
Like, if your tooth is hurting, you say, I will pay you to make my tooth stop hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But if they're like, oh yeah, you need a filling here. And you're like, I don't feel any pain. No, you need a filling.
Yeah.
Do I? And then, this person hasn't been to the dentist in 4 years. Oh, terrible, right? If they're not feeling any pain, they don't notice any problems. Now, if they're like avoiding it from fear and they're like, oh, I'm just ignore the pain, I won't go to the dentist. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But if they're like, I haven't felt anything, so, well, you got to go to the dentist just in case. Why? There's an interesting Silicon Valley. It's very popular to have biometrics so that you live a long time. You know, you measure everything. You have everything. You record your blood. You get your blood drawn every 2 months. That sort of thing. Very popular. And there was a guy who was saying, you know, if you get a CAT scan once a year to check for cancer, you increase your odds of cancer by like 5% because there's so much radiation from doing the constant CAT scans. And you know, so and it was what did they call it? It was this notion that cancer is either you're too late to cure it by the time you detect it, in which case it doesn't matter if you detect it or not, or you catch it in time and it's this sort of, okay, we can deal with that. And then there's this very small subset, which is we could have caught it, but we didn't because you weren't doing these regular scans. And that is lower than the increased costs of stress and radiation of detecting for it. And so in general, stressing about, oh, this cancer. Now that's, you know, you've got, I don't know, you've got like a third testicle. Maybe you're like,
Yeah.
maybe I'll get that checked once or twice. But
So, two historical medicines, then one thing on that. So, this is Chinese doctor, old historical Chinese doctor. Kind of a stressful job, actually, because...
Actually, is this a guy I know? There was someone, he was like a carpenter and he'd go by like 3 balls because he found like this, it was like the size of his testicle, and he's and he never went to the doctor about it because he didn't want to go, but he would just be like, he'd do these like life terrifying things, like, wow, you sure got 3 balls. And I think that's a guy I might know.
Anyway, so the
dream.
The Chinese doctor of a village would get paid if people weren't sick, and they would get fired, and the court ones would get executed if someone got sick, and then a new one would come in and fix that.
The thing to add to that, probably, I assume, is, again, with a kid falling down and crying or not, the definition of sick might be very different, right?
Yeah, it might be different at that time. But the idea of the Chinese doctor in those villages was he makes it so people don't become sick, because we have reactionary doctors now, and there's reactionary medicine and preventative medicine.
Preventative, yeah.
Yeah, and so the Chinese doctor was a preventative doctor. Yeah, historically, that's the one thing. The other is, have you ever looked at Roman hospitals or read about them? They're very interesting buildings.
I know the doctors were called medici, and that's it.
Okay. So a Roman hospital is the equivalent of a Swiss retreat. If you know, like a Swiss health retreat.
It's like a sanitarium.
Yeah. So they had a running track. They had a wrestling arena. They had a massage parlor. They had a pool. They had a surgery. If you were sick, you went there and you got taken care of.
Hey, can somebody call the janitor? The lepers are in the wrestling arena again.
Yeah.
It's like watching 2 cold soups fight each other.
Oh.
Your skin just keeps sloughing off.
There's probably limitations, like they wouldn't let the lepers in. But they had health centers. And so, oh yeah, that's the other one. They had they had rooms in them where you could go listen to people give poetry, and they had theaters where you'd listen to people singing or putting on plays as well. And they had like talk centers basically where people just interact with each other. So it was this building dedicated towards all aspects of health. And if you were sick or you're feeling under the weather, you would go there and they would treat you with like exercise and eating there and getting clean. And there's methods for a soul. That was what the poetry area was for. Like you would listen to someone orate poetry. And so they had this whole thing of, it was mind, body, and soul was the health they looked at in the Roman medical centers.
So I've got 3 thoughts off of that, if you're...
Well, so okay. On the thing that I was going to say on both of these is absolute population explosion that we've had in the current world might make that more difficult.
Yeah, that's probably part of it.
Like, we're having troubles getting doctors right now because there's so many people here where we are.
But I
They're always
wonder.
busy.
I wonder if there's more to it than that. So
That was the one thing I wanted
yeah,
to
yeah,
say.
yeah. So first of all, you know, I was saying that maybe sick was a different bar, or people they didn't feel sick when they had a bit of a sniffle. They just sort of went on their day, right?
Yeah.
But I do wonder as well, and this is a horrifying thought if it's true. We've got all our modern medicines and our modern cities and our modern doctors and everything. You hear stories about these people that live like way off in the country in a pre-industrialized world, or at least they're beyond the industrialization, and they never had any vaccines or any whatever, even during a time of vaccination, let's say. I'm not saying vaccines are the problem. It just they didn't have the benefits, let's say, to give it its best shake, and they get sick like twice in their life.
Yeah.
And I wonder if being sick is not just a function of the power of the illness, but the weakness of your body.
Yeah.
And if you live in a world suffused with poison, you're sick more often.
Yeah, so just on that, what you say about, so the 5 we get smallpox, polio, like these are nasty diseases. I say that because 90% of North Americans died probably
From smallpox.
Yeah, I actually had a thought on that, but that's a different thing.
So I keep going then?
Yeah.
Okay. So then the next one was, I wonder who was going to the sanitariums of these Romans. Like, was it everyone, or was it just the rich people, or was it just the politicians, or was it just the soldiers, or who was the person that was getting these benefits? And that's, I don't know if you know the answer to that or not.
I do know that the public baths were completely free. How they made money was taxes, and you would pay people to wash your clothes.
And
they were a part of the sanitary and the public bath. So
I also wonder, yes, yeah. So it was typhoid, I think, and the Black Plague, the bubonic plague, Black Death, that ended the tradition of bathing together, basically.
Yeah.
And it does make you wonder, trauma response, like a bear nearly eats you in the woods, and now you're afraid to go through a fenced off garden, right? Yeah. Because there's too many trees. And it's not an irrational response. It's rational. It's like, there could be a bear in there. It could kill you, right? Yeah. It's actually everyone else that's crazy for going into the woods all the time, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to live a full human life, you have to be a little bit crazy and careless with your life in some ways. Theoretically. I could be convinced otherwise, I think. But I wonder if things like smallpox and the bubonic plague are the outliers, and we have built society in response to them. But, we should still be publicly bathing and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so the one of the things I thought about with the public bath system is the Black Death stopped it. However, at the point in time of the Black Death around, Rome was gone for quite a while when the Black Death hit. And it was people living with the functionality of a dead civilization, like, the Mechanicus, they're using technology they don't understand. So it could also partly be that these medieval guys are all using the public bath. And it's a tradition that they've done, and they sort of know how to keep the whole place running, but they don't know how to build new ones. They don't entirely know all the function of it. They don't know what these weird stone tables are for, that's the massage parlor. And it's like, oh, that's just a room full of stone tables. And so it's like the Romans, let's say they get the Black Death. And it's like, you don't go to the public bath if you're covered in these lumps and you're dying. And it's like, the public baths close during a plague.
Yeah.
But the medieval guys are just like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the public bath. Man, this is an awfully large swelling thing I have on my groin. Whatever.
But it could have also been before the bubonic plague that plagues were rare enough that you didn't have to worry about that sort of thing. Or at least maybe not during the Roman Empire. I was reading about how in Bath, which is a city in the UK, where there's a giant Roman bath, in the Victorian era, it was a sort of tradition. They turned into a viewing area in the 1600s or something. It was like this tourist destination, and it has been since then, basically. And in the I don't think people have bathed in it for ages. But in the 1800s, it was sort of tradition to go there and sip from the water. So it's this sort of, I was thinking,
ew.
There probably hasn't been people bathing in there for like 200 years.
But still, ew.
It's probably completely recycled the water. And, it's open to the sky. Rainwater comes in and washes. But it's like, you're sipping from a bath water. This is the original gamer girl bathwater.
It's got the dad gunge ring around it. The bathtub ring.
So the next thought, when computers became popular, like personal computers, a single person was able to do like the bookkeeping of 2 or 3, let's say. And people still worked 8 hours a day, right? When automation came along, you could have had an entire factory of workers each spend 10 minutes maintaining the machinery and making sure everything's working. But instead, they got all replaced with one guy, and everyone else lost their jobs and had to find work elsewhere. What's another? Cars were invented, allowing you to get to work in like 2 seconds flat. But instead, people's places of work just started getting further and further and further away until they're like 100 kilometers away, and you have this ridiculous commute, right?
Yeah.
Like with bullet trains in Japan, people have commutes across the country to go to work. Yeah. So what I'm getting at there is that with, let's call it increased convenience, where you have to spend less time doing activities, that means you actually spend less time doing that activity, but it doesn't mean you do less time working. It just means you have more time left for work.
Yeah.
And so an example, there was a relief effort in South America, I think it was. There was a clean water source to a village that was about an hour away. And the women every morning would go and they would fetch pails of water and bring them to the town so everyone had water.
Yeah.
And so this relief effort built a well in the town. So it was like instantaneous to get the water. And they would find, okay, we built this amazing well. Job well done, pat yourself on the back. They'd go to sleep. They'd wake up in the morning, the well was sabotaged. Someone had like trashed it. So they'd rebuild the well. And okay, we're great. We've got water right here in the town. They wake up the next morning. Someone had like torn down the well, like collapsed it or whatever, destroyed the well. So it went a few times until they finally either caught or someone admitted it was the women who had been destroying the well because they liked their walk in the morning to where, with all their friends. Like the entire village got together, all the women. They go for an hour-long walk with all their friends. They got to talk. They got to wake up in the morning, fresh air, bring the water back. They had a great time. And they didn't want to lose that because they knew they didn't get to, that if they had this well, that didn't mean they got to go up with all their friends in the morning for an hour-long walk. It meant, okay, now you can focus on everything else that needs to be done in the village, right? Yeah. And there's also a degree of, I think, purpose where you can't have this purposeless walk with your friends. People would have an excuse not to come and they wouldn't go. And there's, and so with the Roman sanitariums, that it was long enough ago. This is me theorizing, right? But it was long enough ago that maybe they hadn't optimized. They hadn't made their lives so convenient that they couldn't afford to miss a single day of work.
Yeah. So
the Romans could afford to miss a single day of work because their lives weren't so convenient. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. On the African woman, there's an interesting thing.
Well, South American.
South American.
Yeah.
So in the West, let's say cultural West. So washing machine
in the first world.
Yes.
You know that was a Cold War thing. First world was allies of the United States.
Oh, really?
And third world was allies of Russia.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. So the washing machine, the oven was around for a while, but like the electric oven, the washing machine, vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
I think, and the dishwasher. Yes. So
yeah.
Basically, dishwasher not so much. The washing machine and the vacuum cleaner are far more important. Also, the mixing bowl added to it. Like basically all these convenient things. This very interesting thing happened. I believe it was in the 20s that this happened. The majority of what I'm about to talk about, which was housewives, started making extremely elaborate cakes. House decoration, like home improvement, skyrocketed of how fancy and foofy the houses were. And it's this weird case of like, all right, you have all these conveniences for your wife, so she doesn't have to do nearly as much housework. And so you come home one day, and there's new embroidery added to all your pillows.
Because she's doing the same amount of work.
Yeah.
But then what happens is suddenly employers are like, what if we just pay you half as much and your wife works too? And then you can go back to where you were. And so you never gain the benefits.
Yeah, well, so, yeah, now the washing machine is a necessity instead of a luxury.
Because you have to be working all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the sort of thing that makes people turn socialist and say, oh, this is late-stage capitalism. But the thing is, socialism demands the exact same amount of work from you. Because the problem isn't capitalism or socialism. The problem is Moloch, which is, we've talked about before, but it's this well, it's an ancient god, but as it's used in the modern context most of the time, it's a similar idea to the tragedy of the commons, whereby the incentives for everyone are to do what is worse for the worst thing for everyone, because if you don't, someone else will, and then your life is even worse for it. And so it's this rush to the bottom, where everyone demands you. What was the example? It's a fishing. You have like a fishing operation in a lake. You can pull in $1,000 of fish a day, and there's 1,000 other people in that lake, and they also have this fishing operation. But then it comes along that there's the fish start clouding up the water. They poop a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so you need water treatment, or the fishing operations will drop to $900 a day.
Yeah.
And so everyone needs to get this operation. And so everyone builds an operation, and now but the operation costs $10 a day to run. So now everyone's only making $990 a day. But you discover, hey, if I don't run my operation, the lake gets a little bit more dirty, but only such that, it drops everyone's dollar by one. So now everyone's making $989, but I'm making $999.
Yeah.
So I'm barely affecting everyone else, and I'm making $10 more than everyone else. Well, $20 more than everyone else. So it's basically a win-win, except I've actually cost the total group like $1,000.
Yeah.
And then everyone sees that at once, and they're, well, he's doing that. Why do I have to pay for his waste? So I'm going to do it. And so everyone, there's a lot of cases where this occurs. I think we had an episode where we talked about a bunch of them. And did we talk about how like the only solution is sort of to have a king?
Yeah, you have a king or government overreach.
But, well, not the government because the government is made up of a bunch of people, and all those people have incentives, and that's where corruption comes in. And so you need singular power to...
Yeah, well, the singular power, I heard this interesting...
Or you need everyone to work in concert.
This thing on trigonometry, they're interviewing this person. She's talking about, so in the country she's from, if you want to start a business, you have to go to a bureaucrat. And the bureaucrat has to sign a bunch of paperwork for you. Now, he can make this process take 2 years or more. It's completely within his power. He has power over you. And the fact that he has power over you to sign saving a business incentivizes him to make it take as long as possible so you bribe him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly... People say, okay, microtransactions, they're bad. I'm a progressive, modern, informed consumer, right? So I'm against microtransactions, except for cosmetic ones, right? But the customer, but the wise customer knows that if you make cosmetics, if you forgive cosmetic microtransactions, then you incentivize the developers to have zero budget for cosmetics when they're making the game, because they can sell it to you later, right? They don't... So...
Do you watch my video?
No?
Oh, I released a video yesterday basically on this topic.
Yeah, well, it's...
I actually wanted to talk about it, but...
Yeah, well, here we are. The problem is you can have the best meaning people, but if they said, okay, we're going to put microtransactions in our game, then they need microtransactions to sell. So, for instance, you had the Age of Wonders 4 come out with... If you subscribe to the newsletter before the game was released, you would get I think it was a extra skin for the hat of your leader or something,
yeah,
if you subscribe to this newsletter, which meant they had to take a hat out of the game for people not to have.
Yeah.
Now, it gets kind of weird because you look at a game like Battle Brothers, where they made the game and they said, okay, we can't afford to make any DLC for this game. This is a one-off, we're done. And they said, but, if you want to support the devs, we put in a little bit of extra effort and we've made this Kraken banner. And you can buy, it's $10 for a banner that does nothing to your gameplay. You might never even use it. It's just to support the devs. And so they made that a DLC for the game. And they made it like a year or two after the game was completely done. And you say, well, that's a microtransaction. And it gets very difficult to determine the difference, because maybe they made the Kraken banner 2 years ago and then they sat on it for 2 years just so they could release it. And I don't think they did. But...
Yeah, and then there's the case with Dota, which is this game's completely free. However, it's an online game that's been running for like 10 years now. And how it makes money is they sell cosmetics. And that is their marketing process.
Yeah, and so you say, well, they need to make money, right?
Yeah.
But then the question is, no, not the question, but the fact is they still have perverse incentives if that is their monetary model. You can say, well, they need to make money somehow. So, yeah, they could have chosen a different model.
Yeah, well, so in the video I made, is why I'll never buy Dragon's Dogma 2. Wrestled some jimmies, apparently, with a few people.
Oh.
It's one of my most like-dislike equal ratios, so it's one of my most disliked videos I've ever made. Got a pretty hateful comment, too, on it, actually. Anyways, I basically said... So there's 3 games, and these are all on different scales. So Legendary War, it's marketing, how they made money, is you could get moonstones and gems. Now, moonstones and gems are the primary way that you make your army stronger so you can beat the game.
Dragon's Dogma?
No, Legendary Wars.
Oh, I thought we were talking about Dragon's Dogma.
So I talked about 3 games monetization systems.
Oh, right. Legendary Wars is that mobile game.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so how you have... It's free, but how you basically have to beat layer levels is you have to upgrade your soldiers. To upgrade your soldiers, you need to spend gems. There's an unlimited amount of those, but you have to farm for them. And you have to get moonstones, which is a finite resource you only get from being bosses once. So, you don't need to buy them, but the game gets scalingly harder.
Yeah, it turns into a grind on purpose to encourage you to buy them.
Yes.
Even if that wasn't the developer's original intent, if they want to make money, they have to design the game such that you need to spend money to get through it.
And so there's perverse centers problem there. And there's a certain amount of hell you can accept.
I heard people defending Dragon's Dogma because they're saying a lot of the features that it adds are ones that make the game worse, and so you're paying to have the game a worse experience, therefore it's okay to add them to the game.
I'll get to that. So, this is why I'm playing Legendary Wars for the monkey brain grind of, Adventure Quest?
Yeah.
How I was really high level in Adventure Quest. I didn't, apparently there's a bunch of guides for Adventure Quest on how leveling. I've actually been playing it again, but part of the twisted fun, I don't know if this is healthy, but part of the fun I got from it was I wasn't a guardian, and I was the level I was at, and I had the gear that I had. And the same with Legendary Wars is I grind, and I am happy with the grind, and I'm not spending the money.
And a lot of people say that, and that's why they defend the microtransactions, because they say the whales are paying for my experience.
No, for me, it's not the whales paying for. I'm better than them, but it's also a free game.
Right, but you get to have a free game because of the whales.
Fair.
So you are... The game that you enjoy is supported on the back of others suffering. is a very harsh way to say it.
This is interesting what you're doing. We'll get back to this and what I was doing here. All right, so Dota 2, we already talked about its model of it's free and they sell cosmetics. That's how they make their money. And I have gotten cosmetics in Dota. I'm not proud of myself for doing it, but I have done it. Be transparent with that, because I like the cool hats. And
I have gotten cosmetics and love Nikki.
And really?
Well, I'm a VP or whatever in the game.
Okay.
I've got the special pass that gives you 10 stamina a day or whatever it is.
Yeah, so I
I haven't played the game in like 6 years, but yeah.
Yeah, so I've played Dota 2 for like 3,000 hours or something.
Yeah.
And so I can, in my brain, make the excuse, well, I want them to keep supporting the servers for Dota 2 because it's multiplayer game. Servers
Well, no,
have costs.
it's completely reasonable to give the developers money of a game you love.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the only problem is the incentives they have to make the game worse. But supporting them for something you love, yeah.
So, and then the final game was Helldivers. And I really enjoy the game. I bought it. But I think it did cross the line. Even though people are like, oh, this is the most fair monetization they could do to support their online servers. Because you buy it once.
Helldivers 2, you mean?
Yeah,
or?
Helldivers 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so you buy it once. And then the only thing you can get is super credits.
And what are super credits?
They let you unlock optional battle passes, which then you have to use money you can't buy to then get the things in it.
So you're paying to... battle passes where the more you play, the more you unlock?
Yeah, so you get more guns and more armor sets.
So you're paying to have a store progressively open up to allow things to be bought.
You can also get the super credits by looting in-game item caches.
I'm so thoroughly disgusted by, in quotation marks, RPG elements getting rammed into every game with these battle passes, and it's hideous. I hate it.
So what I said in this video is this is on the line of acceptability and it's probably crossed it.
That's so far past the line of acceptability to me.
Yeah, well, see, this is interesting. So, Dragon's Dogma, you clearly know a bit about it.
Not much. I played the first game, but I haven't touched the second game. I just know that they have DLC for like saving features
This is
and
what I'm talking
character
about. So-
customization.
So they have gold, and then they have, let's say, cosmic gems. That's not what they're actually called, but they have cosmic gems. So you can use cosmic gems to set fast travel points, to cosmetically change the appearance of your character, to resurrect your pawns if they die, to buy certain items you can only get with the cosmic gems.
What are pawns?
They're your companion. So you have this little servant companion who runs around that levels up with you.
Okay.
And it's controlled by AI.
So it's okay, yeah. And I think in the first game, the companion was like super smart, right? Like
Yeah.
that was like a big thing.
And in the second one, it is super smart as well.
Okay.
And it interacts with you and has unique lines for the unique areas, and its personality develops on its class and what you do.
Because Dragon's Dogma 1, when I played it, I think its three biggest strengths were the super smart AI, the ability to climb everything,
Yeah.
including the monsters,
Yeah.
and then the character customization, funnily enough,
Yeah.
which they got rid of in the second game.
Well, no, the second game has insane character customization
Didn't they make you pay for it, though?
to reset your character. But like this, it's
Like an MMO?
basically, like if you want to change their appearance.
And is that do you get unlimited resets if you pay for it, or?
Each time you have to do it. So, that reset costs these gems. So it costs these cosmic gems.
Okay.
So you can pay money to get these cosmic gems, or you can earn them by playing the game.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Because all that does is, okay, let's balance the game around. Holy cow, that's disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Dark Souls, right? This has been an argument a long time. And I wonder if at some point this will be called the Dark Souls fallacy to defend this. So
I'm just imagining, this is probably where you're going, but like, you want a bonfire? $2. Just stick a bonfire down wherever you want.
So
You want to save before the boss? $2.
it's even simpler than that, the bonfire. So you want 2,999 souls. It's $2. So it's like, oh, but you don't have to do this. However, if FromSoft makes it so you can pay money for the souls,
Then they...
every monster you kill is going to give you slightly less souls.
Yeah.
And every monster is going to be a little bit stronger and not hard, but unfair. And the boss, like, let's say it's like, oh, this boss in a FromSoft game, they release one. It has a really unfair attack sequence, and it uses this ability when you drink a potion. And then FromSoft developers go, it wasn't supposed to do that. This was the AI taking advantage of the players.
Yeah.
So we're going to tweak it so that it's fair. It's still hard, but it's not unfair.
Yeah.
However,
We're going to tweak it so that potions heal you twice as much if you buy this special amulet.
well, even that, we're not going to fix it. It's going to stay unfair.
Right,
Because you need more souls to beat
we
it.
get twice as much money if we keep this
Yeah.
boss in the game.
Yeah. And then Dragon's Dogma 2, again, people are like, oh, but it's acceptable for me. This is fine. This is the whole thing we're talking about. It's acceptable. I can earn them in game. Enough people buy Dragon's Dogma 2. It made a lot of money from this. And people buy these passes. Dragon's Dogma 3, you're going to have to buy gold now, not the cosmic gems. You're going to have to pay for gold.
But you know what will happen? People will... The Dragon's Dogma 2 fans will be upset. The Dragon Dogma 3 fans will be like, oh, it's not that bad. It's just gold for items. It's fine. It's whatever. It's just cosmetic. It's just transmogrification.
Well, and so, what I talked about those games. So I said...
Imagine in Outward, right? If you could pay for fast travel points... And people would defend it while saying, well, you're not supposed to fast travel, so it makes sense that you have
Well,
to...
that's actually one of the defenses of Dragon Dogma is the
That's
game...
what I've heard, yeah.
Yeah, the game maker doesn't like fast travel.
So you have to pay for it. It's like, oh, so you can pay to make the game worse.
So I said, this is how, like... I actually got some video footage of Adventure Quest for this, but this is how Legendary Wars makes money. This is its model. And it's a far better model than current, actually, phone games.
Yeah, well, the Artex guys as well, like, you see them talk, they're just, like, normal dudes. Like, they're really nice guys. They don't want to take advantage of their players.
You're talking about the Adventure Quest, the Atrix?
Yeah, Artex. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that team.
Yeah.
They're just some cool dudes that don't want to take advantage.
The game's still getting updated. Adventure Quest is still getting updated.
And all the special events they now release for free, and they stick them all, they keep them in the world, and they're really cool dudes. And yet, the games still have all these incentives. Even though these are really nice guys that don't want to take advantage of people, and they try to make everything really fair, they're still taking advantage of people.
Yeah.
Because the model itself incentivizes it.
Yeah, and so
There's a famous saying that the blade itself incites violence.
Yeah, so I was saying, for me, that...
Probably a gun control thing, you could say, actually.
Yeah, for me, Legendary Wars is acceptable. Dota 2 is acceptable.
Is the firearms restriction stance the same as the no microtransaction stance?
It might be. You should be allowed to own a tank. That's where you're...
But if you think you should be allowed to own a tank, then you should also think that microtransactions are acceptable, because they're both libertarian stances.
Weird.
But a libertarian can choose... This is the thing about libertarians, right? Oh, it'll turn into this hyper-capitalist nightmare. You can choose not to give people your money.
Yes. So...
my money that I was going to spend on Dragon's Dogma, I'm going to buy a tank.
Yeah. The Helldivers probably crossed the line.
No, I definitely crossed the line.
But
Oblivion, when it released horse armor, which was a functional thing for a reasonable price, it was only a few bucks, people lost their minds. And I would too, because do you remember, like Durlog's Tower, right? An entire massive dungeon was like a small DLC for Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
You look at Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Armageddon's Blade.
Yeah.
Adds combination artifacts, a massive campaign, like huge.
Well,
it like 30, 40 hours of content in the campaign, and then it adds the Conflux. Shadow of Death adds an even bigger campaign, adds more combination artifacts.
I have a friend who's a bit of a Paradox simp. Like, he buys every single game they release that's actually made by Paradox. So, like, their Victoria, all those, he gets all the DLC. And I was saying, I'm annoyed that Paradox had its DLC policies implemented in Age of Wonders 4.
Yeah.
I don't like Paradox for it. Like, people think that Paradox have the most fair DLC policy of any company. Compared to Age of Wonders 3... These DLC are garbage. Age of Wonders 3 has some of the best DLC ever released. Like, it's DLC of any video game. They made the game amazing.
Diablo 1 Hellfire doubled the size of the game.
Yeah, Diablo 2's Druid and...
Yeah, that didn't double, but the Diablo 1's DLC, doubled the size of the game. But Diablo 2's DLC added it 25% more. It added a new act. It added 3 new classes.
No, it was just 2.
It added a bunch of new powers, a bunch of rebalancing. I think the best DLC ever made, though, is Age of Empires 2's Conquistadors. Conquerors. Age of Conquerors. Yeah. Age of Kings was good. Age of Conquerors was unbelievable. It fixed the AI, doubled the content, added a second tech to every civilization, added the American civilizations, added...
The second tech was the African Kingdoms. That was the fan mod.
Oh, it was African Kingdoms that did that one, yeah. Okay, it added a first unique tech then, possibly.
It added the first unique tech.
It added the first unique tech to every civilization.
And African Kingdoms is the most amazing mod ever made. Or one.
Horde of the Abyss.
Yeah, Horde of the Abyss is up there.
Open XCOM.
Fair enough.
Open Morrowind.
Yeah, but were those integrated into the game as a free DLC officially supported by the devs?
No. Yeah, that doesn't happen too often.
And the whole team got incorporated, if they wanted to, into the dev team.
Yeah, that was pretty cool of them. The only... Sega does really good with that, actually. Like, they allow fans to publish games for them. Yeah. Sonic games. So... Age of Wonders 2, though. Shadow Magic? I mean, that's just a better game.
Yeah, so what I said, though, is... Obviously, you've drawn this line and stood by it a lot sooner than I. At a certain point in time in your life, you have to draw a line in the sand. And it cannot be crossed.
Yeah.
It can be renegotiated. However, even then, there is the problem that once you renegotiate it once, you know that you renegotiate, and everyone else knows you renegotiate. What's worse, though, is if you let someone cross it, then you know that you're willing to let your line be crossed, and other people know that. And so they'll go, hey, and they'll poke you, like I just did with your arm. And they'll see if they can make you take a step back. And you will, because you're that person. And you'll take a step back every single time.
Yeah. Now, there are cases where Fritz Lieber talked about this in Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. The oaths of young men were made foolishly and sometimes must be left to the young men.
Well, that's why I said the renegotiate.
Yeah.
You can renegotiate, but even then you have to be careful.
You have to be very careful, yeah.
You can even say, I was a young man. Like Karsa Orlong's, I made these oaths when I was younger.
Yeah. But the problem is, I talked to a lot of Age of Wonders 3 people, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying, Age of Wonders 3, almost crossed the line for me, it was right there. Because it did a lot of stuff that was
Yeah.
pretty nasty, actually. Like, it's the only game still, I think, on GOG that violates its no DRM policy.
Yeah.
And it changed the end user license agreement like 4 years later, and that sort of thing. And so a lot of people are like, I'm unhappy with it, but what can you do, right?
Yeah.
And then all those people went out and bought number 4.
Yeah.
So what could you do? You could not buy number 4. You could not buy Planetfall.
Well,
you could
so there's
you could go to the Netherlands and burn Triumph Studios to the ground.
there's
I don't want that to happen. They've got some great people there.
so
Nobody loves Triumph more than me.
games came out that didn't work on launch. They were buggy. They didn't have the features they promised. It took months of patching, and people still bought them because they were so greedy. They couldn't help themselves. They had to go get Assassin's Creed whatever, or this game whatever, because they couldn't help themselves.
Yeah, Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk 2020.
Yeah. And so it's acceptable. And now when a game launches, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to have to wait to see if they patch. And it's like, oh, what can... Like, I talk about my friends about this, and it's like, no game launches bug-free on release. Yeah, so there were some bugs.
Super Mario World.
Yeah. Well, like almost every Nintendo game.
Yeah.
But there's some games, like Half-Life, had some bugs.
Any non-Zelda Nintendo game.
They had some bugs, but they were small, and it was very, very specific, and they got fixed. Like there are games that lower end studios released, like Vampire the Masquerade. It had bugs. They could break the game, but you could play a decent amount of the game, and you could avoid the bugs, and there's patches for them later. But that's mostly. But like bigger studios, like the AAA game, these are meant to be the perfect game. Like Assassin's Creed 1, did that release with any bugs? No, you bought it on a CD.
Yeah, it was hard to update these things.
And that was that. You had the game.
Yeah, and what happened was games like Warcraft 3, right? They come out, it's amazing, bunch of bugs. They push a patch through Battle.net. They're like, sorry, we didn't test it on this system. Yeah. We fixed it. And people are like, oh, that's cool, that's great. And the company, they didn't want to release a buggy game. But then people are like, yeah, cool, thanks. And they're like, wait a minute. If they accept that when we do it accidentally, maybe they accept it when we do it on purpose.
Yeah, so the line's been crossed. It's been the Overton window is usually a political thing, but it has been moved. It's been shifted. And so after a certain point, if people buy Dragon's Dogma 2, even if you buy it and you don't get any of these microtransaction DLCs for any of these little things.
I've heard people say, but companies need to make money. The cost of making games is more expensive
It's
than ever.
$95. Shut up, you idiot.
But also...
It's a single-player game as well.
Yeah, but game prices haven't increased with inflation. And also the price of making games is more expensive than ever. Okay, don't make as expensive games. Super Mario World is still one of the greatest games ever. It was made by 5 people.
Yeah.
Minecraft, the best-selling game of all time, was made by 1 person.
Again, back to the studio that made Half-Life. I think one of my favorite games now. It's had a studio of like 20 or 30 people.
Yeah, you don't need to spend these ridiculous budgets. Yeah. Secondly, the production of the models and stuff, that's more expensive in many ways. Don't make the expensive models. But also, you don't have to do physical release anymore. Physical release is super expensive.
Yeah. Well, here's something else. So there's not a physical copy. So, Baldur's Gate 3, the first act, the act I've played the most of, that was their demo act, was the most solid act in the game. Best writing, best stuff going on. Like, it was put together well, had the least bugs. The team was a lot smaller when it was made. As the team grew and later acts were made, they got more buggy, the writing got lower quality, the overall design got worse. Adding more staff and bloating out the game and making it more expensive made the game actively worse.
Yeah, that's a lot of people consider the best Zelda game ever to be Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask cost them almost nothing to make because they had all the assets made already. It was just the game design that they had to do. Yeah, and that was the clever thing, was the unique game design.
So I find that excuse to be worthless.
But people were losing their minds about Oblivion, though, right?
Yeah.
The line was crossed back in 2005 or whenever, 2009, I think it was when Oblivion came out, 2009. And even, you look at Morrowind's DLC, they also suck. Yeah. But they're like, we added the the Brotherhood. What are they called?
Dark Brotherhood.
We added the Dark Brotherhood to the game. That was one of the DLCs. And the other DLC was vampires, I think. Yeah. But they added like 2 guilds with all the guild quests. Yeah. And people are like, well, that's, meh, but okay.
Yeah.
And they were free, if I recall correctly as well. That was the thing. People, I don't know, this is going to blow people's minds who are like permissive of all these microtransactions. DLC used to be free. So the difference between an expansion and a DLC was that DLC was free. The developers would say, okay, hey, we just added like vampires to the game. Go to our website, download it.
Yeah.
Be kind of fun. You can just have those in the game. An expansion was meant to be like an entire
new region
of the game, or a new thing, or in the case of a game like Age of Wonders, which they said they were called DLC, like Age of Wonders 3, they called them DLC, but they were actually in the expansion model. But what they did was they actually they sort of layered the game.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, at every level of the game, there is more decisions to be made now.
Yeah. And
huge decisions, like game changing. Like, okay, we've added achievements to the game, and you think, what? Well, that's not. No, it's like, okay, first person to build a arcane forge now gets a super powerful item for free. First person to build a city gets the eternal city, which is twice as strong as a normal city. First person, so they added the system. Then okay, cosmic events. Here's this new thing where every few turns some random event will change the entire outplay of the game. And then also we added the arcane item forge. You can now craft items yourself in the game. And we added a new race, the undead, and that's a DLC. And you're like, well, that's not much. It's like, no, the undead interact with every other aspect of the game because everything else can turn into an undead variant of itself. And yeah, they're these huge. Well, no, they are big. They're huge.
Yeah.
And they also, I think they added campaigns on top of that. But
yes, there's campaigns on that. So you're saying the line was crossed then. Some people accepted it, some people didn't. There's obviously, like I said, people are willing to draw different lines. Here's the interesting thing on this. So I said a lot of people disliked my video.
The line was crossed with Durlog's Tower.
Well,
Durlog's Tower makes Baldur's Gate worse.
A lot of people, like I said, comparatively, like not many people have watched beta, but still comparatively. And I was, I think, taking it with good grace where you said I crossed the line.
You know when they...
And I said I didn't. Let's...
They added horses to chess?
So I had a different point of where the lines crossed than you did, obviously, with these games. And you actually make some good points with what you're saying of these incentives. And I didn't consider them there. Like, I considered other things I said, like with the Dark Souls, and you just extrapolated further to the next level of the sword itself, which I think is a really good example of that. So... when you point these things out, though, and there's someone who has bought Dragon's Dogma 2, and they don't see this as a problem, but then they attack you so viciously for it. You've probably experienced this to some extent.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's possible to follow someone on Steam, but I think I mostly get negative comments on every comment I leave.
Yeah.
And it's probably, maybe I should learn to write better, but I go and I read end user license agreements on games, and then I post the end user license agreements in the discussion section, and I say, what's this?
Yeah. So...
what's going on?
Yeah, so... yeah, and it's this interesting thing. So the comment I got was someone said, Capcom has done this with all your games. Their games. You obviously haven't played the game. This is why your channel's so small and only has 10,000 subscribers. And it's like, you're an idiot with no knowledge.
This is why you're in the top 1%.
Well, that was part of me. It's like, haha, yes, I do have 10,000 subscribers. Thanks for pointing that out. Actually getting close to 11 now.
You know, like...
But it was a very venomous comment of, like, this guy was just being really rude. And it's this interesting thing. It's the same thing with hedonists, where they're hedonistic. And then you come up with your... black shirt, and you've got the little white collar, and you've got your little cross. And you go, you shouldn't be so sinful, but Jesus forgives you anyways.
You know, I heard recently that the sin of Sodom was inhospitality. But given the name, it sounds like they were very hospitable. People always had a place to sit.
It's not a comfortable chair. So... sorry, you just melted my brain with that. I'm usually the one doing this to you. But you point out someone's sin, let's say. You point out how they missed the mark. Yeah. Or you don't even say, you did this.
No, because pointing out someone else's sin, that's virgin on arrogant, right? Yeah. But that's not what you did.
No, you point out a sin.
Yeah.
You say, this is how you can miss the mark. This is how something can go wrong. And the person sees that they missed the mark. And they see that they sinned. And they hate you for pointing that out. and they want everyone to be as evil and degenerate as them now. And if you say you are an idiot, you're a terrible person, you are awful, and they're going to just viciously attack you.
So one thing Tom Scott said that I think was quite good when he's talking about sponsorships and videos. He was saying, everyone's got a line that they think is unacceptable for sponsorships and videos, right? And that line is just slightly above what they themselves would do.
Yeah.
And so he was saying, I can't stand them in ads, but some people, they might not be able to stand shouting out a friend or talking about this or doing it. And so a question to you, if I may, with where I said, enjoying Legendary Wars on the back of the suffering of the whales, right? That's quite a harsh thing to say, and it might be wrong too. So I think two parts of that are, one, me perhaps not trying to be the word of God on high, being explicit about it, just saying I think this is what I think is going on there, right? And then the second thing to that would be, I guess you have the right to disagree or say that is the price I'm willing to pay, or that is the price they were willing to pay. So with Legendary Wars, I think that you can say they made their choice, you made theirs, and you are not happy they made their choice, but you may as well take advantage of the situation as it exists.
Yeah, I will accept that. You pointing out that thing is true. I'm willing to overlook that, and I don't hate you for pointing that out, and you're not an idiot for pointing that out.
Okay, it can be...
And I do see that now, and secondarily to that is the Legendary Wars anyways. Like, Aatrox is a different thing. I am playing Adventure Quest again for some reason. But
with the Adventure Quest, it is like just $10 a month, right? Or what is it?
It's $20 once.
Once. Yeah, so it's almost a free sample at that point, if you look at it that way.
Yes.
It's not a microtransaction, it's a free sample.
Yeah.
Yeah, same with games like...
That's true for all Aatrox's model. Now, you can buy Z tokens as well. That's a different thing, so it's different than the Guardians, and the Z tokens cost stuff. And
right.
Guardians earn more Z tokens, and you can get them passively.
Yeah, so the Z tokens are a bit more questionable.
Yeah, but the Guardian and having a full-grown dragon and whatever else, that's just actually buying the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like, here's our free shareware. Yeah. If you like it, get the proper game. Yeah. Yeah, that seems fair. Beyond the Z tokens, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what they could say is, you've played for 10 hours, now you can't play anymore. But they're like, hey, you've played for 10 hours, buy the game. If you don't want to, you can keep going with this limited form.
As we completely derail it, but Adventure Quest is not a very good game. It's all right game, but holy cow, have they made so many art assets.
But they're not even consistent art assets, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a little upset because they updated some of their assets, and so some of the armor doesn't look the way it does. And it looks better, like there's more lines, there's more art. But like the werewolf armor doesn't look as good anymore. Same as the werepile. I like the old style they had.
What are the little demon things called? Gremlins or...
It starts with an M.
Moglins?
Yeah, Moglins.
Do they still have the Moglin health potions for the...
Yeah, the Moglins, they still have the... No, they got rid of the Moglin health potion for the werewolf, which made me really sad. You don't bow the head of a Moglin anymore.
Oh.
But also, like, they have their Moglins and they have their Zards. I love Zards and I love Moglins. Yeah, stop gushing about the...
Well, I actually tried replaying Adventure Quest a couple months ago, because I watched a video on it and I was like, oh yeah, I want to try out Adventure Quest again, because they've got the Arctic's launcher now.
Yeah.
Since Flash went down, they built their own launcher.
Yeah, the Aatrox launch, I think if you want to get back into an Aatrox game, you play Adventure Quest World. Don't play Adventure Quest.
And so I was trying to play and I was like, well, first of all, they sort of give you everything at once.
Yeah.
So you kind of get hit with this wall. There's no like, start here and then do
that's
this.
the same. Like, I tried to get back into Black Desert Online, because I would play it for a bit, and I reloaded my like level, I think it was 15 pirate. I had no idea what's going on, and I just quit and uninstalled the game again.
They're like, a UFO's crashed over here. Come fight. You're level 1 hero in the level 50 zone.
It's not even that. Like, there's so many icons and so much going on, so many shops and different... How do I even play this game? What is going on? What matters?
That's the other problem with the incentives of continual payment systems, like MMOs in general, right? It's that there ends up being like 20 different shops and like 500 different little icons demand, like, oh, click on this red icon, then click on this red icon, then click on this red icon. Although in Adventure Quest case, most dialogue options don't lead anywhere.
There is no dialogue option, it's just keep talking.
Yeah, and
it's just silliness. That as Adventure Quest is just pure silliness.
It was made by a high schooler, so, you know. Like he was in high school when he made the game.
Wow.
Yeah, when it first came out. He's obviously
Yeah.
older now.
Yeah.
He's a few years older than me, but yeah, he's
No, it's just like it is definitely a game that was made by one guy, and he just kept working on it.
yeah,
And probably got a team later.
yeah, he's got people with him. I think he was doing it with his friends, but yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, it's
Now, if you go to the Adventure Quest Reddit, it's one of the top posts of all time that shows purchase, and it's $25, and it's Guardian, and it's every single kid's dream, and it's the top post on their subreddit. Is this adult goes back and he buys a Guardian.
Josh Strife Hayes. He did a review of Adventure Quest,
Yeah.
but he also did one on Wizards 101.
Yeah.
And people in the comments were saying, "I'm so excited! My 10-year ban is almost over."
How do you get banned from Wizards?
I don't know what they did to get banned from it, but there used to be a very weird thing where if you got banned from Adventure Quest, or if your internet went down, the Grim Reaper would come to kick you off the server. I don't know if you remember that from Adventure Quest.
Yeah.
And it was like the only way you could become a lich was through getting one of these like pink slips. So you had to either be banned or like lose connection, I think, at one point.
Yeah, that's Adventure Quest had the lich was from losing connection.
Yeah. Which...
Yeah, so, yeah, you can point out a moral failing.
Yeah, and the game's going to have many positive qualities, of course.
This is generalization, though.
Yeah.
Because I do actually want to circle back to being overweight, the stress response, those things, partly with this. You can point out a moral failing, and
there's nicer and crueler ways to do it as well.
yeah, there's nicer and crueler
Like,
ways to
you're
do
all terrible people for buying Helldivers, and you should all be ashamed of yourself, is different from, like, I disagree with these decisions because of this and this and this.
Yeah,
and this.
and I did a mix of that in my video. And I made it a lot less harsh than it was initially, but I was still quite angry, and so a bit of that blent over into the writing. But I toned it down quite a bit. I might have said I will hate you for doing this. But anyways.
I mean, yeah, that might be a bit far.
Yeah, it was. I won't make a video like that again, I don't think. To that extent.
About that topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I did tone it down a lot. So, like, in retrospect now, like, the original script versus now is, like, 100 to maybe, like, 20%. I should be at 5% of what.
Yeah.
For it not to rustle Jimmy's.
Well, not just wrestling Jimmies, but to actually be fair, right?
Yes.
Because there's things you overlook. There's reasons people like someone's like, this is the only way I can have a reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Well,
and you're saying you hate me for it.
So what the people I hated, I say I hated. It's not people who buy Dragon's Dogma. I don't hate you for buying Dragon's Dogma. I hate you for defending it and using those reasons. I hate. That's why I hate. Is your defending. Your defense is what I hate. You saying the moral corruption is okay and the line can be crossed. That's what I hate.
Now, the tricky thing with hating people for defending something is that it kind of insulates you from good defenses.
Yeah.
Like, if you say, look, all people that buy the Dragon's Dogma DLC are pedophiles, right?
Yeah.
And anyone who argues against that being true is basically trying to defend pedophilia and is therefore a pedophile as well. So it's like, no, well, they're not pedophiles. Oh, that's exactly what a pedophile would say.
Well, one could actually argue that their DLC thing is reducing pedophilia because it's going to reduce people's ability to mod the game because they have anti-cheat installed. And one of the things the original Dragon Dogma had is you can make people super short. And in the new one, they got rid of the option of making people super short.
Was that an issue they were concerned about?
They got rid of the ability to make dwarves, basically.
Yeah, but was that because of pedophilia?
I think it was actually because of dwarfism.
Yeah, we don't want to represent people in... I get confused.
Yeah.
About that a little bit.
Yeah. And it might have been partly to stop making lollies.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah. It's easier to make your animations not break if your characters have less range as well.
Yeah. I think what you should do... Actually, some games do have this is in the character creator. It's... They have these... Black Desert actually has this. Where you'll go along and you can really modify height. And it says, there's this little line, which is, you can go across this line, but if you do, it's going to start breaking animations.
You know what Skyrim does? I don't know if you've ever noticed. It actually resizes your character whenever they interact with something. So if you have a tiny character that sits at a table, they'll grow to normal height when they sit.
Yeah, or sometimes it will, or their waist will just stretch.
Yeah.
Something else I realized, didn't know about Skyrim, but it's why one of the best races in the game for speed running is the High Elf. Is your character's player model size actually affects your movement speed.
Mm.
And high elves have the tallest hitbox, and so they move the fastest in the game.
And your size also affects your damage output. I don't know if that matters to the characters or not, but it does for creatures.
Yeah.
Because if a creature doubles in size, like if you just click on a creature and say set scale 2, then it'll do twice as much damage. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we get distracted easily. Pointing out this alien, and then what is that though? Do you not want to admit that you're in hell, and so?
Well, I think part of it is saying, a reaction to someone saying you hate them. I think that's probably part of it.
Well, I'm not talking not even saying you can do it without saying you hate them, but you just say this is a sin.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. You're awful.
Well, sometimes
you don't understand this thing.
Sometimes they don't think it's a sin, obviously.
Yeah.
And being called a sinner for something that you don't think is a sin, you have to defend those things you find valuable. Otherwise, you will lose your value in them. But, the thing more there is, I find strange, is when people defend these giant companies for some reason.
Yeah. Well, so this is something that Connor Tomlinson of the Lotus Eaters has said. And this is one of his points that might annoy people, of many, where he talks about gay pride parades.
Yeah.
And how they're very degenerate. And it's like, yeah, sure, do this in your bedroom, but you have to do this in public because you know you're morally degenerate, and so you want it to be acceptable because you in your heart know it's wrong. So the only way that you can console yourself is having other people tell you that it's acceptable.
Well, no, you have to do it in public because the parade wouldn't fit in your bedroom. It's pretty obvious. I mean, you couldn't even fit a float in a bedroom.
Yeah.
No, if they knew in their heart it was degenerate, then they would be hiding, surely, right?
Well, no, because they want it to be acceptable, even though they know it's in their heart, so they show it publicly because that's like the prideful sin.
That's not a logical statement, though, right? Like, because that means everything that you consider to be degenerate is something you do in public.
Well, so
like every public action is done because of degeneracy.
Well, no, you try to make
Look
it
at them
acceptable.
walking on the street, trying to make it acceptable, even though they know it's degenerate.
You're trying to make it acceptable.
Even though you know it's degenerate.
Yeah.
That's why people just walk down the street normally.
Well, it's not every public thing would apply to that. But it's like, if something is degenerate, then you either hide it in shame or you make it public so acceptable so you can feel morally righteous in doing it instead.
That covers all options.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not a logical statement, right? Like, because you can apply it both to anything.
All right.
And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it's not logical. Like, it literally does not follow logical reasoning.
Yeah, so a different Lotus Eater, what's his name? Callum. He dropped out of being a physics student. And one of the final straws for him when he tells this story is he was taking a computer class. It was this computer system for, I think, rockets or something that he really didn't understand. It was quite confusing. And the test year to year stays the same. And so everyone cheats at it and does it really fast. And so he's in the class and it's the final test for this class. And everyone finished the test and they had it all done. And he was still working away on it. And everyone else had left because they're just done. They're out of there. And his teacher came over and it's like, oh, you're still doing it here. And he just started doing it for him. And then Callum's like, no, stop. I'm doing this myself. And if I fail, then I fail. Because Callum actually has some very high moral standards.
Well,
in some ways.
No, I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying that's not a high standard. Like, doing your own work isn't a high standard.
And the teacher, even the teacher knows everyone cheats. And so it's just like, do it and get 100%. Like, even the teacher knows. And so the corruption of that system is everyone cheats and say no cheats. And so it's acceptable. Because, like, once everyone starts doing it, then it is acceptable. That line has been crossed. And now it's okay to cheat at it. And so you do that anyways, and it's acceptable.
Right, but going back to, I don't think that changes Connor's statement where you can't say that all actions done in public are done because of shame.
No, not all of actions, but he's saying that.
Right, but that means that you can't determine that an act is done out from shame unless you have your own, like, you have to be a mind reader for that to work.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying a lot of people disagree.
Or alternatively, what Connor's actually doing is he thinks that being homosexual is degenerate.
Yeah.
And so what he's saying is that I consider this degenerate, and they are trying to normalize this behavior I consider degenerate.
Yeah.
Which is a different statement from they know what they're doing, and they're trying to...
Yeah. I'm going to say that to defend him, just not the surgeons, not saying homosexuality, but like someone wearing a leather dog mask in public and then like in a speedo and gyrating.
Sure, but he thinks that's degenerate, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that they are doing it because they're ashamed
Yes.
of the action.
Yes, fair enough.
Like, but what the statement he needs to be saying is, I consider this degenerate, and I don't think that this degenerate behavior should be normalized, rather than you're doing this because you know it's degenerate and you want it to be seen by everyone to be normalized, because then that could apply to everyone. Now, it could be that you have evidence that they believe it's degenerate themselves, and you could say, look, like what Connor could also say is, look, in our hearts, God has told us what is good and what is bad, and so we all know this is bad, and so therefore you are doing this bad thing in line with Satan for some reason. I don't think... And you can say, look, the shame you feel is not society's judgment. The shame you feel is your own shame turned upon yourself. So there are statements to be made about it. But yeah, saying that you're doing this because you're ashamed, yeah, that doesn't work.
But
that's probably what he meant, though, was that everyone feels shame from this, and yeah, which might not be true. But maybe he believes it's true. Like I think a lot of Catholics and Christians tend to think. Well, it's the same with Callum saying everyone cheats on this test, right? People look at the world through how they think it is. Like I've seen people say, I just told a white lie. Like everyone tells white lies. No, not everyone does. You tell white lies, so you think everyone does.
Yeah.
And Connor, you think that the leather dog mask is degenerate, so you think everyone thinks it's degenerate, and you believe in God, so you think everyone believes in God, and atheists are just lying, right? Like that's like, maybe he doesn't actually believe that one, but that is the thing I've seen a lot of Catholics say, is that everyone believes in God and people are just lying about it. And there's much more complicated arguments. Like Jordan Peterson has a much more complicated argument, which kind of boils down to the same thing in many ways, which is the same argument Dostoevsky makes, where it's like, yeah, I have all these logical reasons why nothing matters, but I still feel it does. And so that is the feeling of God that you can't deny. And that's a much more sophisticated argument than I'm just lying to help out Satan or something like that. It's much more of a, despite my intellect, I can't get rid of God. But that was something that Ivan said, who is an atheist. Like, Ivan is an atheist despite the fact that he can't help but think that it feels like there's meaning.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean there is meaning, and it doesn't mean he believes in God. It's just he can't help but feel it. So he's not a deceitful person. So yeah, how does this tie back to the fat people?
Well, I mean, you just proved it doesn't.
What do you mean?
Well, no. Basically...
Oh, because we were saying that the people know what they're doing is wrong with the video game.
Yeah.
And so they feel called out.
And someone knows that they shouldn't be fat because they don't feel healthy, but
so they react strongly to people calling them out for the thing that they know they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't think that's what the video game people, let's start with. I don't think that's what they're doing. I think that they're having fun. And okay, so this is, without going too deep into it, I was recounting to you this fun moment of mine, and you made a joke about it, and you were saying, oh yeah, no, I didn't get to be involved in that, basically, right?
Yeah.
And I said to you, come on, let me have this. And that caused quite a tiff between us, and we were both upset by that, because it was like, whoa, I'm not taking it away from you. And I was like, geez, you're taking this thing away from me. And I think it's the same thing. I think it's like, let me have fun. I'm having fun. And your statement. And so what's going on?
So it's that meme of, let's describe a meme because that's everyone's favorite thing, of there's those guys sitting around the TV.
Yeah.
And they're playing the game and someone's behind them.
Yeah.
And he says all the things that's bad about.
Yeah.
And then one guy's like, okay. And they all go back to the playing game. And he screams, stop having fun. However...
It's the opposite of that.
It's the opposite of that.
So what's going on is that they see you as an authority figure.
Yeah.
And you are changing their mind on the thing. And they don't want you to be changing their mind because they're having fun. So a lot of... This is something I've sort of touched upon from a different angle, actually. A lot of game reviewer channels I watch, and a lot of video reviewers, and a lot of feminists have had the same problem, where they say they can't enjoy media anymore. Like, they don't enjoy movies, they don't enjoy games, because they're constantly examining them. And they're picking them apart, and they're saying, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, right? And they don't enjoy it anymore.
No.
They say, like, I was loving I was loving this book I was reading, but then it's just the same tired old tropes, and I wish I had never gone into like book YouTube, because now I just see the same tropes everywhere. And I was playing this video game, but it's basically just a Souls-like clone, and I used to love this sort of game, but now I just see, oh, they're going to do this, and then they're going to do this, and it's no fun anymore, right? But I think what's actually going on, and Lucy Green, was that her name? The feminist lady? Lacey Green. She famously said, I have to turn my brain off when I watch shows so I can enjoy them, because otherwise I'm just examining them through this feminist lens, and they're terrible and they make me upset, right? And I think what's going on is they're actually, assuming they're all correct in each case, right? They're just interacting with bad things, right? Like, you can be the most analytical, I'll tear this apart mind ever and play Heroes of Might and Magic 3. And there's a great game there.
Yeah.
Like, you can't destroy that game with an analytical mind. It's the more you analyze it, the more you love it. The more you're like, how did anyone come up with these brilliant systems that interact like this, right? And Age of Wonders 3, it's another game where you think, this game has an unbelievable amount of layers to it. Like, there's the Empire quests, and there's the cosmic events, and there's the city building, and then there's the item crafting, and there's the racial units, and then there's every unit levels up in these unique leveling up patterns, and then there's all these crazy neutral monsters, and there's secret monsters, and there's monster camps that spawn creatures, and there's buildings that you enter, and there's buildings that you're outside for, and battlefields have unique spells cast on them. Like, if you go into a tomb, creatures resurrect constantly, and then if you go into battle at a city, the city can build buildings that they rain fire down on you as you're attacking, and the castles can be different, and then you can build magic dampers, and you can build watchtowers, and there's so much to do in the game that it's, or not just to do, right? Lots of content is a bad metric, I think, for quality, but it's the sheer depth of options
that interweave with each other.
That interweave with each other is staggering. Yeah. Like, you look at a problem, and
there's depth and breadth.
In a lot of games, you look at a problem, you're like, okay, there's two ways to solve this.
Yeah.
In Age of Wonders, any of the Age of Wonders, you get, okay, I could light this forest on fire, and then I could split my army in half and send the fireproof troops through the fire and the other troops along the water, and then I can meet them over here, and I can get to that tower, and the tower I can blast dark magic down on there, and now they have units that have forest concealment, but if I use the dark magic, then they won't be concealed in the dark forest.
I think a great example is your actions led to someone wanting you to make a mod, or them making a mod. Because you had a way of playing that beat a lot of pro players and made them really annoyed.
Yeah.
Which is, you'd summon Raven Scouts, then use a Raven Scout to summon the Raven Scout, and you'd chain them and capture the capital.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's things like that all throughout the game. It's like, oh, you can come up with, you can get the little, jobbies, what are they? The spy drones.
Yeah.
You can summon, well, it's crazy, right? Because you can be playing as the Dreadnought, and they specialize in these very slow machines that move slowly along roads. Well, they move faster along roads, slow everywhere else, but they're very powerful. But then what if you just go all into mana instead and just summon a huge amount of spy drones and just suicide bomb your opponent and win that way? And you just have these drones everywhere. And then you're playing as the rogues. You can't win in hand-to-hand combat most of the time. You cast Rebellion. Actually, right now, I'm playing against the AI. The AI they're sending Shadow Stalkers, which are very terrifying and almost invisible units, into all my bases. It's like, okay, they're going to attack me en masse. They're not. They're just casting Rebellion on every single one of my cities, and then causing my entire empire every 2 turns to rebel. And I can't dispel the spells because they have more spell power than me, and they're reinforcing all the spells. So my empire is just falling apart without them doing anything. And I'm like, this is amazing. The AI is developing this completely unique strategy that I've never seen before. I mean, it's an obvious one, but I've never seen anyone do it in that exact way.
Yeah.
And this is the AI doing it. And like, Heroes of Might and Magic, I showed you one time where I couldn't beat the AI. There was just no way I could beat them. I just kept losing. So I was like, I'm just going to build like 500 boats and put a boat on every single shore tile.
So they can't.
Land their boat on
they
my.
can't do a water invasion.
So they can't do a water invasion. And then I'm going to build banks and just outproduce them with money, because banks can make infinite money, given enough time. It's like, I'm just going to take 5 months on this tiny campaign with my boats along. Yeah, and completely outproduce my opponents.
So there's just bad things. Yeah, and people are reviewing, and they're tired of reviewing a bad thing.
Yeah, and so I think I think what would happen with a lot of people, they get really into anime and they start doing all these anime reviews. I think wow, a lot of this anime is terrible and I don't get it. And I can't go back and watch the stuff I used to love because I don't like it anymore because it has all these bad qualities, right?
Yeah.
And like the first time, when I saw Captain Harlock Space Pirate, I was like, this thing's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was amazing because it was so silly and so over the top. But I think if I went back and watched it, I wouldn't like it because that's actually pretty par for the course for a lot of anime. And it's not a very good show in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so I think it's people, they have two paths there, sort of. Three. They either start watching good anime, which probably exists, or...
There's a very small amount of...
or they just abandon anime because they're like, wow, it actually sucked. Or three, they just keep watching more and more in pursuit of that high of like, come on, there must be something more like this. I got to keep going. And maybe the people that follow that third path are the ones that like, this is me like armchair psychologizing to a whole new level, right? They're the people that like One Punch Man because One Punch Man is mirroring their journey because they're desperate for the bigger and bigger thing. And One Punch Man is sort of the biggest thing.
Right. I'm going to give you a fourth category.
Okay.
Called shonen. And that's young boy brain of woo ha ha punch him.
Right, but that doesn't happen in anime. That's the problem. Like, if it was just woo ha ha punch him, it'd be so fun. But
Dragon Ball.
But they just, and that's why I said Dragon Ball was like one of the few good ones. Because all people do is stand there, frozen, and talk, right? Like, you look at Fate Zero, it's this time-spanning battle royale, and there's no fighting in this battle royale. It's like, how does anyone enjoy this? Like,
I enjoy it.
If there was actual fighting in it, it might actually be good. But it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna take 3 episodes to swing a sword. Attack on Titan, same thing. Like episode 8 lasts like 4 hours, and it's just a bunch of nothing happens. It's like, oh, he's under a rock, and now he's a man, and now he's a giant, and now.
See, I think the difference in my ability to enjoy anime and yours literally comes down to reading speed.
Maybe. So it's still faster for you than reading something, maybe?
Yes.
Right. But then...
I have troubles keeping up reading anime subtitles.
But then in that case, like... But still, surely you'd rather be watching, like, people fighting than just talking for, like, 6 hours.
I mean, there's stories sometimes in the talking for 6 hours.
Like Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? There's a story, but there's action and beauty the whole time. Whereas Fate Zero is like, and, like, the talking they're talking about is filler. It's nothing. It's like, I use my secret shadow strike, which I have been developed for. Like, someone just wrote filler words. They're like, okay, we need 5 minutes of filler. Like, there's no substance in there. It's empty. It's hollow. Like, there's nothing they're talking. Then they repeat themselves. It's like, oh, that was the shadow strike, wasn't it? Yeah, that was the shadow strike. It's like, there's nothing.
I think you're throwing aspersions at my Fate Zero. Maybe other anime like Naruto do that, but
Fate Zero is of a higher caliber.
Yes.
Yes, every word is
And
carefully
you're an awful,
crafted.
horrible person. I hate you for calling that Fate Zero out about that.
And so what happens is, what I've done, right, is I've pulled the veil away from your eyes, and you realize I hate my favorite thing. So, okay, here's a harsher example. We're gonna go deep, right? We're gonna hurt ourselves here. We're gonna get into the minds of the hateful people. Okay. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
A game we both want to love with all our hearts, and a game we both want me to love with all our hearts to some degree, I think.
I'm over it.
But I don't know if I love it. Well, I don't love it, and I don't know if I like it. Like, I think it might be a bad game. Like, I think it just might be a straight up bad game. And the thing is, I'm so conflicted about that a lot of it is almost me trying to... If I can convince others, then I can be justified in my belief. And then they're like, whoa, stop okay, you can have your problem, right? You don't like it, fair enough. But don't try to make this... Don't ruin it for me, right? Like, you're just ranting at me to try to ruin this game for me, but I like it, right? But the question is, why am I a threat to you, right? That's... Yeah. But maybe that's not an idle threat. Because people can poison you, right?
Yeah.
People can poison... I have read...
People can poison you, but also actually having the veil torn from your eyes is also terrifying.
Yeah, but I think poisoning and veil torn from eyes, it's a very nebulous distinction.
Yes.
I've read some horrifying things on... there's Reddits called stuff like liberal left men and male allies and stuff. I've been to a few of those Reddits, subreddits. And there's...
Why?
Well, so I don't... This is one of those things, like, you know, we're only like 4 years apart in age, right?
Yeah.
But this is one of those issues where I actually see the generational gap.
Actually, on the 4 years part, right? So, when the pandemic started, I'm now older than you were when it started.
Yeah.
And that's like, blah, blah, for me.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Or close to, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the, yeah, you're not quite yet, because I would have been another half a month older, I think, possibly.
Well, I turned 20 just during it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, okay, yeah. That's about right then. No,
And I'm almost 25 now.
yeah. 25.
I think you were...
24.
Yeah, when I started.
Yeah, so maybe you're older than I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is one of those things where I see the generational gap, though, right? Because you were saying, yeah, I can't remember what you said, but you're like, yeah, the Reddit app sucks or something, or I have to delete the Reddit app from my phone. It was something like that. It's like, there's an app for Reddit? And I have seen people where they will say, whoa, how did you find this post that you're commenting on? It's like 6 months old. It's like, I think people my age, no, not everyone, obviously, we don't use Reddit, right? We go to Google, and then the Reddit page, the Reddit thread pops up. Not even the forum, but the thread. So I'm not searching leftist male allies, right? I'm searching like, how do you
Woo a woman.
woo a woman? Yeah, and then it'll be like, well, here's recommended the male.
You shouldn't woo women, you filth.
Yeah.
You're a male chauvinist pig.
So that's how I come across these 2-year-old threads, because I'm not in Reddit. I'm not saying that you don't do that or you can't. It's just, it does seem to be a distinction of thinking of it as an app versus it's in some circumstances.
Yeah.
Right. But anyways, and there's people that are older than me that are like zoned into Reddit and are just Reddit, right?
Reddit brained.
But even then, a lot of them tend to treat it more as a forum than an app.
Yeah.
The app, anyways, because the app came later, right? Much later. So a lot of these male feminist allies and whatnot, very sad. There's one, it's called like autistic leftist allies, or I can't remember. They're talking about how they hate themselves for being attracted to women because they know it's wrong, but they can't stop it. And they're like, what do I do? How do I stop feeling attracted to these women? How do I stop these dirty thoughts?
Become gay.
Well, no, there's, conversion therapy. Yeah, that they're asking for conversion therapy for their impure, sinful thoughts, right? And this was relevant for some reason.
Did my obvious statement become gay?
No. It was just, what was the? Okay, so people were poisoning. You're right. So what happened to these people was they were like, I want to be a good leftist. I want to be a good ally. I want to be a feminist ally. And a lot of times the feminist rhetoric has changed or has evolved to the point where men can't be feminists. They have to be allies, right? And sometimes it depends on the feminist. Yeah. And that's the really hard thing.
It depends on the sect.
Well, that it depends on the individual feminist, because you look at the replies and they're like, well, you should be ashamed. And then someone's like, that's not real feminism. Feminism is just being upfront for women. It's totally fine to like women, right? Just don't be creepy about it. And someone's like, everything they do is creepy. And someone's like, nothing they do is creepy as long as you're being honest.
It does come to the sect, however, because it's the internet and postmodern deconstruction, whatever, theory, basically makes every single one an individuality.
But what I mean with the feminists is they all think that they all agree on everything, but they don't agree on anything. And so when they give you advice, like, you have to follow this advice, right?
Yeah.
You follow their advice, and every other feminist will hate you for it. But you follow any of the other feminist advice to the letter, and all the other feminists will hate you for it, because they don't actually agree with each other. And that's what causes this sort of horrible ostracization of the purity spiral. It's like, because nobody actually agrees. They just all pretend or think they do. Because they're like, yeah, well, we're all goodish people, right? So that means we all agree, because good people agree, because good thoughts are in union, because...
A good thought is a good thought. It's a moral existence of this is a good thought.
Because the future moves towards a point. That's the progressive idea of it ever moving forward. Yeah. It's the same as the... I think Short Fat Talker did a video about this actually recently, where the materialist view as well, of Marxists' cycles. Marx said that Marx wasn't a proponent of communism exactly, like he was, but the Communist Manifesto, in large part, as from reading the entire thing on air, it's actually describing that it's inevitable. Basically, feudalism inevitably leads to liberalism to monarchism, and monarchism inevitably leads to liberalism, and liberalism inevitably leads to communism, each with a revolution.
How does he explain fascism? because liberalism led to fascism. And the fascists were socialists, or the Nazis were socialists, but I guess
I think the fascists, I think his explanation for the fascists would be either they were a detour or they were reactionary. So as a reactionary, they are moving backwards on the chain. So because what the idea is that with every revolution, the power of the mightiest gets, the pyramid compresses, right? It gets brought down a tier. And so with the monarchy getting overthrown into liberalism, suddenly it's not poor, rich, and royalty. Now it's only rich and poor. And so with the next revolution,
it's just poor.
It's just poor, except they're not poor. It's equal.
It's only ever been just.
And that's why they don't call them rich and poor. They call them bourgeoisie and proletariat.
Yes.
Yeah. So with the fascists, I'm trying to think what, I have to think of what a communist would think of the fascists, right? And so fascism is opposed to socialism. So it is based upon. It's been a while since I read Mussolini, but his idea was to make it not based upon class, but upon
state.
No,
people, nationality.
That's fascism as a whole, like everyone for the country. Yeah. But his idea was a sort of revolutionary transformation where everyone is united through profession, sort of. So
so all the soldiers are united through being soldiers, and all the mechanics are
through mechanics. Yeah, I think that was how it went. And so you don't have the manager, the high up manager. It's just we're all mechanics. We're in this together. He wanted to make it not about class so much, but about we're all workers more. I can't remember how or maybe it was race instead of class. I can't remember. It's been a while. So it is vaguely socialist because he was a socialist at one point. The Nazis, I wouldn't say, are socialist at all. And for a number of reasons, in Mein Kampf, there's a section where Hitler's we took over the National Socialist Party because there was no one in it. And then we had red flags and we called everyone comrade instead of sir and madam to mock the socialists and to lure them in, workers who were oh yeah, I'm a socialist, I'm here. And then we would actually decorrupt them from socialism. And we were just using socialism to trick people. And we used to laugh that people thought we were socialists. That's in Mein Kampf. Yeah. So I think it's pretty cut and dry that he wasn't a socialist, but that people still argue that because they're the National Socialists. It's the Democratic Republic of Korea is...
Wasn't exactly a fascist either, though.
No, I don't think the Nazis were fascists. I think they were I want to make up a term, mystic nationalists.
They were mystics, that's for certain.
But they weren't just mystic nationalists, they were mystic German nationalists. The German part was very important to them. Hitler actually, in Mein Kampf, he said his views changed over time, so I don't know which views changed, right? But he had this idea of democratic parliamentarianism.
Yeah.
The thing where you have elected officials represent the populace, instead of just electing a leader. So having members of parliament, right?
Yeah.
So he said he used to love democracy, and he thought the United Kingdom was the shining example of democracy, and he thought it was great. And he said his love of democracy continued until he was 20, and he entered the parliament of Vienna. And he saw the people in action in the parliament.
Yep, that would destroy someone's love of parliament.
Now, you were a page.
Yes.
And I
saw even more.
And I wonder if you saw...
Ooh, it definitely damaged my thoughts of a democratic process. Or not a running the parliament. So I can,
some other time, or maybe after this, I can get into why it annoyed him so much, but more on topic. He made a distinction, though, with German democracy, which he thinks was different from Austrian parliamentarianism. Which was German democracy. I actually quite like the sound of. It's a nice form of government he came up with. Basically, and I don't know if he's just, this is some idealized thing that doesn't exist, but he said, in German democracy, you elect the leader, and the leader has campaign promises, I will do this, 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 and this. And if they don't do any of those things, he is killed.
Yeah.
It's I kind of like that.
Well, I have thought of a political system which is so you have an election, and if a leader is voted out, let's say like that actually might get me in trouble, so we'll make it up. So you have the what's it not color that's you have the silvers and you have the golds.
Yeah.
And so the silver leader is in, and then an election happens and the golds get in. So after that election, or even during that election, so first you vote, so you vote for your leader. And then the current leader that's in place, there's a secondary thing, which is how displeased are you with current leader? And you check like, oh, I am displeased. Let's say I'm pleased, neutral, or displeased. And if like 61% of the population has displeased with the old leader, he's executed.
Right, so Hitler's problem with that would have been that you would create a system whereby the leaders you elect are the ones who can most convince the populace to like them, not the ones who will make the country it's the best it could be. And so that's why he said it was based around fulfilling your campaign promises.
Yeah.
And so if you elected someone who fulfilled their campaign promises and you hated them for it, too bad you elected him.
Yeah.
But if he didn't fulfill his campaign promises, even if they turned out to be wrong, well, then he shouldn't have made those promises. He's out of there. And he didn't have to die. He said put his reputation and life on the line. He didn't say you just straight up execute them. He said put their...
I think the execution is needed. That might say something about me. But I think because like a politician can flee to a different country, they can make money. It's like, oh, whatever, I'm no longer the leader. I ruined the country, but haha, I'm rich.
Well, I think like Hitler's idea
so
was...
like even... doesn't have to be execution, but it's like...
the threat of violence and death. I think.
But even it's like your money... I think we talked about this before, but basically a politician, after they're no longer a representative, like, so you're president of the United States, or, because that's a term limit, that's a very solid set term limit. So you're done your 8 years, you can't be president ever again. You're also never allowed to work again, and you have a amount of money you're given, or each year, and that's all you're allowed. So like basically, if you're going to become a politician, you're doing this as a service, and we're going to treat you well. Like, you're going to get more than the average person afterwards, but you can't get a lot more. And so it stops like, oh, I'm going to give you kickback, so then when I'm no longer president, I'll like get a cushy job as a health inspector for like the National Drug Bureau, and this guy's really corrupt with drugs.
Well, instead of giving them money, maybe just like you're granted these privileges for the rest of your life. Like any restaurant you go to, they have to serve you for free. Any store you go to, you can get one piece of furniture a month. You can
like something like that is like you get these privileges, but you were a public service, so you do get a reward, but you're also limited so that you can't get kickbacks.
Yeah, I think.
And so then if you don't fulfill your promise, then you're also...
Hitler didn't want representative government at all. Because his argument was that if you have a problem and it hasn't been solved yet, that means it takes an exceptional mind to solve it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a problem, right? Because it would just be solved. And the problem with an exceptional mind is that they're the exception, which means most people don't go along with them. Otherwise, they'd already be solving the problem. Which means that the person that can solve the problem you're facing is, by definition, going to be unpopular. And so he believed that a representational system leads to sort of the lowest common denominator being elected, and then all of them working together. Like, you've got 300 people working together to come to a consensus. You're never going to have the unpopular decision chosen. And genius is unpopular. Otherwise, it wouldn't be genius. That was his argument. And on top of that, there was the issue that, one thing he said was you can hide behind consensus leadership, because you can say, well, my advisors told me to do that, or you can say, well, that's not my responsibility, that's the Minister of Agriculture's responsibility, or, yeah, well, we all came to the agreement, so we all share the blame equally, right? So he believed that a leader should take all the blame for everything that happened in his country, which I think is interesting because there's some argument, his sister, for example, who say he didn't know that the Holocaust was going on. Like, he had the camps, he wanted the Jews out of the way, but he didn't want them just being killed en masse. That was a miscommunication, or that was the work of someone else.
Well, I've actually heard something else about that, which Germany was starting.
And so it was accidental almost.
No, it wasn't accidental. It was a very German utilitarian.
We can only feed some people, so
Yeah.
we'll get rid of the prisoners first.
Yes.
Right.
So that's another argument I've heard about that.
And so, that's quite tragic if that's true.
Yeah.
Maybe not the German solution one, because that's nasty. Like, yeah, utilitarianism is nasty, and I disagree with it. But let's say he didn't know about it, right? And it was but interestingly, under his own standard, he's still responsible for it.
Yeah.
And also within that framework, by killing himself, he actually did some way follow his own ideals. He said, like, I will do what I was elected for, or I'll die. Now, there's a lot of talk about him changing his mind on a whim, and because once he was in power, well, what he was elected for was essentially, if you want to give him like the best shake, right, with the German democracy he describes, his promise was to be a great leader, and so he's allowed to change his mind in service of great leadership the whole time, right? And the other thing about it was Hitler never rewrote any laws, right? Like he didn't break any laws. He just declared a state of emergency, and then another state of emergency, and then another state of emergency, and another state of emergency. And because that gave him the powers to do everything, right? He's like, well, we're at war. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And you can make the mild comparison to Canada, right? But you've got to give Trudeau the credit of it lasted a weekend.
I think this would be...
Hitler, it lasted like 16 years or something.
It's strange because like you can extend a state of emergency to a point, like, and it's hard, like you want a leader to basically steer you through a disastrous period, but this actually happened to Churchill afterwards, basically, like it happened to him. But after you call a state of emergency, once it's over, you should be kicked out. Of course, that's the problem of then they will try to indefinitely extend it.
Yeah, because they don't want to get kicked out. Yeah, it's tricky because it's the same thing.
Well, I feel like and then there could be other political movement, because then my solution to that is you can call it, but then the rest of the parliament can cancel it, but then there can be them maneuvering to get you out and cancel it too early, and you're actually still in a state of emergency. And
it goes back to the microtransactions, perverse incentives, right? Like, I think personally, if a company violates a like corporate trust law, right? Like they like Amazon locked that person out of their house, right?
Yeah.
Destroy the company, tear it to pieces, divide it up, seize its assets for the government, just redistribute it among the people. But if you have that law, then the government's just going to devour every company it can get away with, and then all the companies are going to leave your country because they're like, I don't want to be seized. Like, what's going on here? And so they're just all going to abandon your country, and the ones that stay, the government's going to be incentivized to destroy without them breaking any laws.
And so then it comes down to the libertarian of, you'll never do business with Amazon again.
If that's your feeling, yeah. And actually, in Amazon's case of locking the customer out, that seemed like it was an honest mistake.
Yeah.
But the question is, okay, that's an honest mistake that, this person accidentally you thought was being racist when they weren't.
Racism should not justify locking someone out of their home.
Well, forget that in a way, but like, who made you the government that, like, okay, even, first of all, a government that can lock you out of your home for hate speech laws is not a government I want to live under.
Yeah.
But if that is the government I live under, I didn't elect Amazon.
Yeah.
Why is Amazon making this choice? What's going on here? Like, that part...
Yeah, one more step back
it's
even
like,
from these.
Okay, Amazon, you made an honest mistake. This person shouldn't have been hit, right? Why is that your policy at all?
Yes.
Why is that an option? If anything goes... It's like, oh yeah, like, imagine if Walmart, right? They're like, oh, okay, it was a series of crazy events that never should have happened, because we have like special locks and whatnot in place, and we need like 4 employees to get into the area, to the bin area, right? But unfortunately, one of our customers, it was just the wrong time of day. Our employees were sick at the same time. They forgot to lock all 3 of the gates. They put their cart in the bin area, and it set off our nukes. And it's like, why did you have nukes hooked up to the bin area? Like, why was that an option? Even if you had all the safeties in the world, and it's an honest mistake that it went wrong, why was there nukes in the bin area? It doesn't make sense. And that's, with Amazon, that's the reason you might want to boycott Amazon. And then again, well, here's motivated reasoning for you. Amazon is unbelievably inconvenient, and they have the best customer service on earth. And so it becomes very easy to say, well, it was, it was a small section of Amazon,
Yeah.
and it was, the hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing, and the
And that's the thing. I actually want to play Dragon Dogma 2.
Yeah.
I want to play it, but I'm not going to buy it. But it looks like it could be a fun game.
Age of Wonders 4. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the, Planetfall. They actually made the modding user friendly, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I can't wait to try this out. And then they just screwed their Age of Wonders 3 over, and it's like, I really would love to play this. I'd love to mod it like crazy, and they do this, and it's easy again to say like, well, I'm not stopping the company by my little boycott, and I'm hurting only myself, right? But here's the counter to that, I think, to give people who do any sort of boycott, for whatever reason, a bit of hope. It's like, I've found in my experience, boycotts tend to pay dividends because there was a reason you didn't trust that company, and the people that trust that company and say, well, I'm not going to do anything, right? Maybe next year Age of Wonders 4 goes the way of the Assassin's Creed Brotherhood DLC, and they just take it from you afterwards, right? Like, Ubisoft shut down the servers, you lose a DLC. That happened recently with Heroes of Might and Magic 6. They shut down the servers, and you lost the Conflux Town, you lost the ability for heroes to level up, you lost... because it was all tied to online stuff, which was the big controversy when the game came out in the first place. They're like, if the servers ever shut down, you're going to lose like half the game. And the servers shut down last month, and people lost half the game. Now, Ubisoft actually, for some reason, I don't know if someone had a stroke or something, they actually, a month after they shut down the servers, so like last week, I guess, they released an update that put all the online stuff offline so that you can actually have access to it now.
Well, I feel with Ubisoft...
So they actually did a good action.
I feel as evil as Ubisoft is, there is Heroes of Might and Magic fans that work for them because they like fans, and so you could have had like a rogue janitor.
And the update actually broke the game so it doesn't run anymore properly. You can't do the campaign anymore.
Yeah, there I say again, a rogue janitor.
But they tried.
Yes.
They tried. The Ubisoft, they ruined the game, but they tried to be good. And then a modder came along and fixed it, like the next day, which modders are amazing people.
And then they say, no modding our game, we will sue you.
Well, that there's a game I've been wanting for years, right? It's called Forsaken Abyss, maybe? It's kind of like Terror from the Deep, but with a smaller squad and very pretty colors, like you go through coral reefs and stuff. And I've been wanting it for years. And it was on sale, it was really cheap. And I was like, okay, this looks cool. I'm going to get it. So I was like, I don't quite remember what the game was like. I'm going to download the demo first just to make sure it's the game I remember and want to play. So I click download demo, and what an assault to begin with, right? Like, I click download demo. I'm like, oh boy, I get to play. And boom, like legalese just in my face. You must agree to this massive end user license agreement before you can play. Like, what on earth is this? And then I go through it, and it's like, you may not look at, modify, edit the files. You can't, like, this is a single player game, and I can't mod it. I can't hex edit it. I can't copy the files. This is a license for one computer only, one copy on one computer. You cannot have this on any other computer ever. So I don't even, and it's like, you do not own this game, like explicitly, you do not own this game. Going down, and I was like, okay, fine, I'm not going to buy it. And it's like this little indie game, right? What's that game? Chance of Center. They did that as well. Yeah. Now, Chance of Center, I had a post. I was like, you have this horrible end user license agreement. And people were like, same thing, like with your video. They're like, well, why do you care? It's not like they're ever going to invoke any of these clauses. It's like, then why do they need them? Yeah. Why did they write them? And then someone else said, no, he's got to, said, no, like, me, has a point. These are pretty nasty end user license agreement. And then the company themselves responded, and they said, whoa, thank you. We're going to try to fix this so that it doesn't have a bunch of these things and it's easier to read. It's like, well, thank you. Yeah. And they did fix it, and they got rid of a bunch of stuff, and now you do own the game, and now you can mod it, I think. But they still have some more stuff in there that it's like, I still won't get it because it's still dodgy. They couldn't give up that last little bit. Yeah. There was... what's the game? Unfortunately, I can't remember the game, and it's not very popular. It's kind of like Nuclear Throne, but it's in space, and they have an end user license agreement, and it's a ASCII art of a guy shrugging, and it says "Have fun."
One of my favorite end user license agreements that I've ever read. I can't remember which game it is, but it was, if you violate this user agreement, you agree to have a winged terror from the night come to your house and devour your soul. And a whole lot of the rest of it was just like jokey, silly stuff in there.
Apparently, this is what this company does now. The one I'm talking about. It might even be the same one. But basically, they said we don't know what to write here, so we're just having fun with it.
Yeah.
But someone pointed out, okay, so your end user license agreement says has fun, which means if someone gives you a negative review, technically you can sue them for violating your end user license.
Well, it was bizarre when my friends asked me, why do you use GOG? Because I have Baldur's Gate on copy of it on GOG.
Why would you not use GOG
they
if you have the
it
option?
on Steam.
Yeah.
And I said, because I actually own the game.
Yeah.
If it's on GOG.
Yeah, GOG is the better option in almost every case.
And they said, that doesn't really matter. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you people? Actually.
The only advantage Steam has is Steam Workshop.
Yeah.
And then, well, there's another advantage, which is there's no magical tool, sadly, for developers to upload their game to Epic and GOG and Steam. And so whenever they do an update, they have to remember to update every single thing. And so if you, like, Skyrim's now on GOG, and sometimes it's like half a version behind, sometimes it's half a version forward.
That sounds like an advantage if it's on GOG and they forget to update.
Well, the nice thing about being on GOG is it doesn't force an update
Yeah.
as well. That's huge, for Skyrim specifically.
Yeah.
Because what I've had to do for Skyrim on Steam is I've had to get rid of write permissions on my folder for Skyrim so that it can't be edited by anything. I can't edit it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I can't let Steam touch this. And I've had to hide my Skyrim copy like on Steam so it doesn't pop up and I accidentally click the update button. And it's so I only launch it through the modding launcher.
Yeah.
And because they updated it again recently, I think.
See, one of the things I love about Mountain Blade 2 is they have this little section, you go options, and it's betas, and it's version 1.2 whatever, version whatever. It has every older version available, and it's super easy to switch, and so there's mods that only work on older versions. You can just launch the game in an older version.
The thing,
And it's so easy to do that.
you can do that to a degree on Steam. You just go to like the betas and then.
Well, this is its Steam beta page.
Yeah. Now the downside to GOG, which I noticed recently, it doesn't have a download manager built in. Like you can get GOG Galaxy and then that has a download manager, or you can own your own download manager.
Yeah.
But I was like, I've got Baldur's Gate 3. Like we should have that because it's on my account. I believe,
Yeah, we have
right?
a shared GOG
Yeah.
account.
And but you parasite off my account. That's how I think. Anyway, you buy most of the games on it, but
Yeah.
but you're like imagine like you have like a
Annoying symbiote.
no, it's like you've got like a rash, right?
Yeah.
That like shoves food into your mouth
And does your taxes.
and does your taxes. But it's still a rash. But yeah, anyways, I was like, I'll download this, just see if it even runs on my computer. And it's like, it's almost 200 gigabytes, and they're all broken into 4 gigabyte files. So I don't want to download like 70 files, one after the other, and hope I get them in the right order. And then
Also, man, one thing I
already did that with The Witcher. It was a
thing
nightmare.
I'll say against Baldur's Gate is its save files are massive, and if you're a saver like me who saves and then you save and you save and you save and you save, it took up like 15 to 20 gigabytes of saves from its save files alone.
Really?
Because I had several hundred save files and I didn't delete any,
Mm.
and they're just massive.
Oh, Skyrim does that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Skyrim, it doesn't. The save files in Skyrim aren't big, but you have like 200 of them, and it adds up.
Yeah, you have 200 of them. That's 2 gigabytes.
Yeah.
I had like 300 save files of Baldur's Gate, and it was like in the 15 to
Well,
20.
I say the Skyrim save files aren't big, but they're like 10 megabytes, right?
Yeah.
And 10 megabytes is like, I remember when I installed Heroes of Might and Magic 5, and it was 5 gigabytes. It took up 6 discs, and it was by far the longest installing experience I'd ever had. It took me ages. And then you look at Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate was like 1 gigabyte, maybe 2 gigabytes.
How many discs
It has 6 discs.
It's like whenever you load a new zone, you have to put in the new. There's something that's kind of magical, actually. This is pure nostalgia, rose-tinted glasses. But there's something magical about Baldur's Gate because our dad had on burned CD copies. They were these golden discs, and it was in its own little file folder, like disc sleeve booklet. And so you'd be playing Baldur's Gate, and you would leave Candlekeep and you're in that zone, and then you would go to another zone, and the menu would pop up and say switch CD, and the CDs were labeled, so it's like put CD2 in, so you'd like take it out and you put CD2 in, then you load up, and you saw that there's all these other CDs, and you hadn't used CD5 yet, and you knew all the other zones. So it was like, oh, what's on CD5? And it's,
I think Diablo 2, each act is a CD, possibly?
Diablo had an installer CD, a play CD, and a DLC CD.
Oh, okay, so it was... I thought there was like per act, maybe not. Yeah, I guess acts kind of do that though, right? Like with Divinity Original Sin 2, for instance, it's like you've entered Act 2. That's kind of like CD 2.
I don't like acts. I disagree. I think there's something different. I think acts are actually bad for games like Divinity and Baldur's Gate. I think they're a flaw.
Like in Shadow of Am, right? It has acts technically.
Yes, it has acts.
But the acts are kind of like...
Have you gotten to the Dark Elf City?
No, but like I do know that the act structure in Baldur's Gate 2 is basically the game, and then finishing quest 1, and then the end game. Like it's very quick denouement after that point.
Yeah.
And then
you go into the underwater city, and then you get out of the underwater city.
Yeah. It's... I don't know if I care, but I'll just in case.
Okay.
Just in case.
That's what I'm saying. Play the game and then do the quest. Because once you start, you're stuck.
Okay, here's the problem, right? If I care about the spoilers for Baldur's Gate 2, then it becomes an obligation to play it. Yeah. Because then because spoilers are a threat until you have completed it, right? Right? And so you want to reduce your threat, so you play the game. And so if you just say, okay, fine, hit me with the spoilers, then the threat's gone. And I wonder in part if my problem with with Tears of the Kingdom was my fear of spoilers. Or alternatively, if it was that I got too many spoilers. It could be either. I'm not sure which, and maybe it's neither. But I wonder, like, I saw too many spoilers, so there's nothing left to explore. Or, 2, I was so afraid of spoilers that it became an obligation to catch up to the spoilers and do everything I could to avoid them where I could. And so both make playing the game a stress. And then 3, just pain while playing something can change your mind about how it is, and a lot of the time too. And if it hurts, then it... But I think there's also a lot of design decisions I disagree with. And I've seen videos of people talking about the same things I've noticed, that it made some weird choices. Like, there's a lot of...
So, one of the things, like, there's a lot of freedom in the building stuff, and it's very cool. I think the Sheikah Slate, its powers, and everything it did, it was just super solid, very simplistic.
Yeah.
And
streamlined.
It was streamlined. It was clean. It gave you creative solutions.
Okay, streamlined might be slightly the wrong word, just because I think... Okay, Tears of the Kingdom, one of the problems I experienced with the game is that I'm too big brain, and I solved the building, right? Like, I built a hover car that cost me like 2 Zonai stone, and it can solve any puzzle in the game, right? And it's like, oh, I want to get from this... Like, I'm playing... Second Wind right now, Breath of the Wild Second Wind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I want to see the Goron hot pools. And, I've seen everything before, so it's like it should be all spoiled and there's nothing left to explore. But I'm like, I want to go to the Goron hot pools. I'm like, well, I'm in the Hyrule Fields. Okay, if I go through the mountains, no, that's too cold. Okay, if I... Like, it's so easy to travel in Tears of the Kingdom. It's not about the journey anymore.
Yeah.
It's about the destination. And I didn't like the game for the destination. I always liked the journey.
Yeah.
And Tears of the Kingdom gets rid of the journey. And even if you like, okay, I'm just going to not use vehicles, and maybe that would help. But there's the problem where they also vomited on the journey with all these little speckles of sky junk.
Yeah.
And it's not interesting sky junk. Like, they could have done something like, I'm going to lift up the Great Plateau, and now that's in the sky. And then we're going to freeze the Gerudo Desert, and now it's this totally different landform. And, the jungle's dead, and there's conifers in it now instead. And now, the... Korok Forest has been overgrown with jungle, and now it's a completely different landform, and these ruins have been uncovered from this thing. Like, they could have rebuilt the map, but instead they just sort of...
Sneezed on it.
Yeah. And there are great moments. I don't know if you ever went to Thunder Dragon Island.
Don't think so.
It's probably the coolest moment in the game that I've experienced so far. Beyond the starting island, like the Great Island or whatever it's called, that thing's awesome. Like, if all the other islands were like that, that'd be amazing. Like, there's so much to do, there's all this, but everything's just like copy paste, right? And it gets kind of it just turns them into like puzzle rooms more than unique islands, except for the Thunder Dragon Island. and little bits here and there. I went to this one island. It's those islands that are like a million miles in the air.
Yeah.
And you get to them, and I don't know what you do, but I don't know if they're all like this. But I was like, okay, I'm trying to decipher the code, which is like from Link to the Past, where there's these indecipherable code texts. And then the entire thing just power cuts out and it falls.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I supposed to do? What's going on?
I experienced something like that. I think one of my, like you say, there is little moments. One of my favorite moments is the giant golems, the Zonai golems.
Yeah.
That's when I realized you could grab them.
Yeah. Well, the problem with that, right, was you told me you could grab them.
Yeah.
And so now I don't know if it matters or not, right? Like maybe I would have never done it.
Yeah.
And because remember, when I played Baldur's Gate, the first game,
Yeah.
I was like reading the like there isn't really a walkthrough, but I was just like, how do I do this? Look it up. How do I do this? And I had a great time. But when you told me about the golems, I was like, oh man, now I can't figure that out. But maybe I never would have.
Yeah.
And maybe if I had figured it out, I would have been like, huh, neat, and wouldn't have cared. And so I'm in this very weird place about spoilers right now, where I'm like, I don't know if I care or not. Maybe they're the most important thing. Maybe they don't matter at all, because I can play Breath of the Wild again, and it's still a great game. I thought it's a game you can't go back to, but I can. I'm having a great time. So I don't know.
Well, the experience, like Skyrim,
Yeah, you can't really spoil, right? Like.
Yeah, so I'm probably at some point going to try to mod Skyrim again, do the whole cycle of modding it, and
Oh, like make a new mod list type thing?
make a new mod, because I deleted my old one.
Right.
Because it got buggy, I got fed up with it, I deleted it, and I haven't
Yeah.
played Skyrim in ages. So I'm going to go through that whole experience again. But how I've always played Skyrim is there's a lot of mods I actually never see, the ones I installed. What I do is I install a lot of mods that have locations or little quests or little things, and it's not like, so let's say I have a mod that gives a set of mage armor. Now someone who does this, they see that set they really want, they want to put it on. What I'm doing is I'm wandering through the world, I might stumble across this mage armor accidentally installed. Have basically never gone out of my way to find its location.
It's just, oh yeah, cool, that's
there. And how I've always played Skyrim, like after the first time I played the first time I played it was weird because I was playing the game, and then I started modding it with the Steam Workshop, and that actually messed up your game quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because I would add mods while playing, and you're not really supposed to do that.
Yeah, well, it depends how you do it, but yeah.
And
The major problem was that you're adding incompatible mods that were affecting my game.
Yeah. Anyway, so you told me off about that, and we tried to fix it a little bit, and then I started adding mods
The proper way.
Yeah, and I installed SKE or whatever, like the Skyrim script, on that same save. I continued to play Skyrim, and I beat the game, I beat all the DLC, and I shouldn't have been able to beat the DLC because we got the bug that gave them to us for free.
Yeah.
Which is a known bug that actually happened with
But
Skyrim. Then it disappeared because they installed a fix to get rid of that, and so then I bought the Definitive Edition.
Yeah. Well, for me, something weird. I had to like buy Skyrim twice, but I got the DLC for free or something. It was weird. I don't remember how it worked.
We have a weird history of buying the game.
Yeah.
But how I did the main quest, I did some side quests for Skyrim, but like I played that one playthrough with this character that somehow survived being playable through all the modding I did to her.
Yeah.
But now how I play Skyrim, because I've done that quest, and I've done a lot of the side quests, even I've had like much longer runs, is I just bumble through the world, and I will go to like I'll be walking along in Skyrim. It's like, oh, this is the mine with that old blind guy in it. I'm going to go in there, and I know everything about that place, but I still enjoy going in there.
There's
And it's like, ooh, I have the beacon of what's her face, and she screams at me about opening her chest. Well, time to go get the Dawnbringer.
It's a funny thing about Bethesda fans, or Bethesda players, let's say. You don't have to be a fan of Bethesda themselves, but Bethesda game enjoyers.
Yeah.
And also fans of like RimWorld and Dwarf Fortress, I think, fall into this as well. There are certain things, mods you might add, that do actions that you will never see, right? Like it'll be like, okay, this keeps track of the age of colonists off the map in RimWorld, let's say, right? And so they can die of old age off the map.
Why would you do that to your game performance?
Well, it affects your game performance, right? And but the reason you do that is because it feels nice knowing that someone's taking care of that. Someone's thinking about that also, right? And so with Skyrim, it's like, I might never do the Civil War quest, but it's nice to know that if I did do it, it would be more realistic because there's trading back and forth of these.
Yeah, well, example, I recently modded RimWorld, and I have the medieval mod installed. I'm playing a medieval playthrough, so my technology's slower. I have vampires. And I have mods that add super advanced technology. And that's my... It's like, why does my mod pack have this?
So, well, if I ever get there, it's nice to know that
Yes.
I'll be able to have all the super advanced
I
technology.
actually had to go install Rocket, whoever it's called.
Rocket Man?
Yeah. To increase my performance because my game started lagging out.
Yeah.
So, I didn't realize as well that I had bought the latest DLC.
Hmm?
And so I was just getting like the top mods of the last year and some mods that look cool. And I was like, man, this is an amazing mod. Like, it adds these like phenotypes and these mutations, and you can make these custom people. And I have like this mod where it adds a bunch of demons and vampires, and they're in my colony. This is really cool. Like, this is an insane mod. So what does this DLC do?
Yeah.
It's like all derived from that DLC. And it's like, I want to install all my mods. Like, after this colony dies, I want to uninstall all my mods and just see what the base game with that DLC is, because it's crazy.
Well, it adds boss fights as well. I don't know if you've experienced those.
I haven't.
They're really cool boss fights.
I have a bit of a because I have a
There's
very
a DLC coming out in about a week as well.
yeah, I have a very powerful vampire, and their special ability is called Heart Attack. It has a 100% chance of working, and any pawn they target dies instantly from heart failure. So it kills the heart 100%.
That's the World of Darkness mod, I think. Yeah, that mod's super overpowered.
Yeah, and I have a Methuselah vampire in my camp, which are some of the strongest. And so, you know, like that one mod that has that giant Titan creature that's like that white thing with the little black eye and the little horn? It's huge and has so much health.
Maybe the Void mod? Or
No, it's like the just giant fauna.
okay. Anyways.
But like any mod that has giant fauna, like I have the dragon mod as well. So they're like these mega fauna, which are impossible to kill. Or know that crab that goes along and destroys the ground beneath it? So once it hits nighttime, you're a mind sucker. And then my vampire runs out, kills that thing, and then it gets harvested, and I have 1 million food for the rest of my colonists. But I encountered a problem on that.
You're not playing RimWorld anymore.
Well, I'm playing a very strange game. Because my colonists, I have a bunch of vampires that aren't vampires from World of Darkness, and they require the harvesting of Humula.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's really hard to actually get that. And so those colonists are constantly going insane. So my solution is I capture prisoners, and I keep them in solid isolation cells.
Yeah.
And through accidents, because I don't have the right mod for it, most of them have lost their arms and legs. But they still can like maneuver a bit because they have like one leg or one arm. And they die every once in a while because they break out. And I was like, man, I really am getting annoyed with them constantly escaping or constantly trying to escape.
So what's the problem though with the?
Okay, so the problem is I installed the joystick mod. It's out of date, so it gives you 100% happiness all the time without any of the consequences. So I have joysticked all my prisoners, and I've joysticked one of my colonists. And now I actually can't use that mod anymore because I realize it's broken because it gives everyone 100% happiness without any consequences.
I mean the World of Darkness is super broken. Like
Yes.
well, super overpowered. It's not broken. It works. But like those bosses that biotech adds, I think they can also be. They're robots, but I think they can also be heart stopped.
Some of the robots are immune to heart stop, but Methuselah and Vampire can just murder them because they're super powerful.
Are they? Do they have a weakness to fire?
Sunlight and fire.
Because a lot of the bosses use fire.
Okay.
So there's that at least.
Yeah, I've encountered
No, they're
them before.
super cool. They have some of the coolest abilities in the game. And have you encountered like the new robots they had, like the Tesserons or the ones you can build yourself? And
No, I haven't encountered.
you have like a mechanator that builds your own robots.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of that.
Yeah, it's
again, I'm running a medieval world, so my.
It's actually the funny thing with RimWorld, right?
I'm. That's why I'm saying I want to uninstall my mods and actually see what is going on with it.
It's funny because it's like, am I spoiling the game for you right now, or am I telling you options that you would have never known about?
You're telling me options I don't know about.
But like, do you want to discover those yourself, or is it like, oh, now I can use those because I know about them?
For RimWorld, for me, I think it's now I can use these.
Because if you never knew the systems exist, it's like you'll never engage with them.
Yeah.
It's like if someone tells you, did you know in Pokemon there's a slot machine? You're like, wait, what? You can use a slot machine?
Well, exactly. So in Helldivers, that awful evil game, there is a weapon called the railgun.
And again, just because a game uses bad practices doesn't mean it doesn't have positive qualities. But yeah.
So the railgun is this charge weapon, and its demonstration, it shows you can overcharge and make yourself explode. And I was using the railgun, and it charged up to this limit, and then it wouldn't go over. And it's like, how on earth do I make it overcharge? And so it's like, oh, you can change its setting to make it shoot. Me discovering it would require me to mash my keyboard until I accidentally found this thing. And sometimes that does happen, like when I have Minecraft mods, and I haven't looked at the control settings completely, and then I accidentally press a key that I should have pressed. Whoa, this just opened up so much more.
But okay, so here's the thing though. First time you play like Smash Bros, right?
Yeah.
Smash Bros Melee, let's say. You're playing and you're doing a Kirby Ditto. And person you're playing against, suddenly they inhale, you have an AI that's playing Fox. You inhale the Fox AI, suddenly Kirby has a gun and he's shooting it, and you're like, what the, how'd you do that? And you're like, I don't know, I just pressed one of the buttons, and you work together, you're like, oh, you can inhale if you hold down B, right? And then you whip out a hammer and you charge it, and you hit them. And that's your thing. You're the guy that can charge the Kirby hammer, and no one knows how you do it. And they're like, come on, how do you charge the Kirby hammer? You're like, I'm not saying it. I can charge the Kirby hammer. That's a different game. It's a good game, but it's a different game from like, okay, here's all of Kirby's moves, here's all of Fox's moves, which one do you want? We'll fight, we'll see who's the best, right?
Yeah.
Or we'll see... Fighting it doesn't really show you who's best. It's like a dance more, right, isn't it? Like, it's the sort of like the better player, in quotation marks, will win more often, but the fight doesn't show you who's best. It is this sort of, let's dance and just watch the dance almost.
Yeah.
But that is a different. So the second game is the one where you've spoiled everything. The first game is one where you're like, oh, okay, we've been playing for like 2 years, and I just realized Kirby has this downbeat. Look at this, is crazy. And you're like, whoa, what? How are you doing that, right? And
so it comes back to Minecraft, as many things do. When we first played Minecraft, we played it in a limited creative mode. The second time we played Minecraft was after we bought it. And the game for us was we'd seen some people play a little bit of online.
And trying to figure out, like, how do you make a pickaxe? How do you make a shovel?
Pickaxe? How do you make a furnace? There was no guide at that point.
We didn't know you could hold down shift.
Yeah. There was no green book, because that was added later to the base game.
Much later.
There was no JEI, because we didn't have any mods. So we were trying to figure out how to make these things. So that was the game experience for us, was discovering these
I don't think
things.
TMI was even out then, by then.
Yeah. So we were trying to discover these things. Later on, we installed a few mods, like you would. You got us the Wizard mod, the Wand mod, you got us the Magicka mod. We actually still...
Well, Tekkit was the first thing we did.
No, Magic Wands was before Tekkit.
Oh, Electro Blob's Wizardry.
No, Electro Blob's Wizardry, it was Magic Wands.
Okay. And then Nexus mod as well.
Yeah.
The Nexus mod was one of the first mods I installed.
Yeah. We did Tekkit later.
And Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah, Gulliver's Travels. But we had JEI. But,
no, TMI.
Sorry, TMI.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had TMI for the factory one, Tekkit,
yeah.
Tekkit. But before Tekkit, a lot of the time, like even Gulliver, we were discovering things, and it's very much a game of discovery.
And we used to try to show off by building above ground bases because we didn't know how to use the shift key. Yeah. So like if you could build a large platform above ground, that was hardcore. Yeah. You were doing something tricky.
Yeah, and so it was a different game.
I built a giant tower because I didn't even know about nerd pulling, right?
Yeah.
So I put down a block of dirt and I grew a sapling on it with bone meal. And then I put ladders along the sapling, and I put a block of turp on top of the tree, and I put another sapling on that block of dirt, and I just grew like 20 trees on top of each other to try to hit the world limit, which I hit. And I didn't even know there's a world limit.
Yeah, so
that sort of discovery of just what is... Or the... when we first built the Ender portal, we're like, okay, we got to put this in a basement locked away just in case stuff can leak out of it.
So that kind of game's finite. Yeah. Though. So you learn how things work, you learn how it operates.
And if it's finite, maybe that's like, you want to cherish it all the more.
You cherish it all the more, leave that finite experience to other people to a certain extent.
What do you mean by that?
If someone else is playing it...
Oh, don't take it from them.
Yeah.
Don't just jump into someone's Terraria world and hand them all the items and say, this is how you go to the bee and kill her, and
Now, if you come... I don't know, like, you should know the person, but... Like, no Steam thing, it shows how long you've been playing. I mean, maybe they are just happy with this, but you come across someone who's been playing a game for 300 hours, and they're still in the first act.
So, the one thing I can think of is we were playing Age of Wonders.
Yeah.
And we were playing simultaneous turns, I think, and I moved, like, half my army... No, I moved, like, most of my army super fast, and then another super fast. And you were like, what? Like, we've been playing for probably 400 hours at this point. And that's number 3. We've also been playing number 2 and number 1, right? hundreds upon hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
And you're like, how did you move your army like that? It's like, oh, if you right click on the selected units, it inverts who you're selected. And you're like, I had no idea. You were using like 3 to 6 times the number of clicks needed for 400 hours.
Yes.
And it's like, so that's the thing. Do you want to discover that on your own and be like, oh, that's cool? Or do you just please tell me right now how you do this?
Yeah. And there's like, that's utility.
And that's actually something...
And it comes down to a lot of judgment, I think, to a certain extent. And
you see a lot of games these days, they completely over-tutorialize.
Yeah.
They're like, this is an exciting chest. Open it, click on it, and then it will give you a chance of having these really cool... It's like, whoa, just let me click on... I know to click on a chest. I can figure that much out. Chests are full of treasure. You don't have to tell me that.
Yes, this...
Let me experience something. Like, imagine if you first play Heroes of Might and Magic, right? Yeah. And it's like a pop-up. You're about to play. It's like, pop-up. Visit a stable to upgrade your cavaliers. Pop-up. Get Galoo, and you can get enchanters, or whatever. Not enchanters. Sharpshooters.
When I played Half-Life 2, they had this new engine.
Yeah.
And you're given the gravity gun relatively fast in the game. But one of the great things is, so you're going along, and you get off the train, you're in the subway, and you're walking towards a guard, and the guard is holding a can in his hand. It's a Columbine. And he drops the can, and he says, pick it up. And so you pick it up and you put it back in the trash, and then he laughs at you. And it's to show you can pick up items in the world and you can put them in a trash can. And it says like E to pick them up. So that's like basically the only tutorial with that. And then it's like, this is the buttons that make it work. You're playing a game later on, and there's Combine, and they're throwing these explosive barrels at you. And they explode, and you see they're throwing them at you. And there's some next to you, and you're like, wait a minute. And you pick one up with your gravity gun, and you aim it at the Combine, and you shoot it, and it goes flying, hits them, and explodes. And so they're saying, they're not telling you, but they're showing you.
Okay, imagine this though, right? You're playing Portal 1, let's say. You're going along. You see a broken tile on the wall. Pop up. Boom. If you press crouch, you can fit in there, and then there's a secret area with extra story.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want that. Obviously.
You don't want that.
But what if I'm standing there watching you play Portal, right?
Yeah.
And you walk past and I'm like, maybe that's good. But what if I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? You got to go in there for the secret bit. It's like, that kind of, I don't know if that ruins it. Maybe it does. Yeah. But maybe if I'm like, whoa, look around again. Yeah. Is that acceptable?
I think that's acceptable.
Okay, what about go in there for the secret thing?
I don't know if that is good.
Or what? You know the cake is a lie? That's in there. I think that's too far.
Yeah.
You have to let them experience something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But to what degree you do that, it's hard to say.
So I've been playing a game. Who made the video about? So Prey. I've been playing Prey.
I don't want to know anything about Prey. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because I want to experience it all for myself, right?
There's a guy who released a video on Prey talking about why he didn't know, like, why isn't this game more popular?
I don't know if I've seen that.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty popular game, isn't it? Like
It's
basically the peak of immersive sims as far as I understand.
But what's weird is it wasn't like it's not culturally stuck in people's brains.
Like that's the Dishonored guys, right?
Yeah, but it's not even like it's like Dishonored. It's not stuck in people's head like Dishonored is. Yeah. Like so many things like Dishonored is. All these different games are like in people's minds, and Prey just isn't. It's just like, oh yeah, Prey was a good game.
Yeah.
Someone made a video essay on that.
There's on a similar note. Okay, here's one actually. This is related to what we're talking about as well. King Kong, the game of the movie. So someone, Noodle, I think is his name. He did an amazing video on it. Highly recommend. And he starts the video with the creative director for God of War 5. God of War 5, they tried to make it so... Well, they did make it so that there's no loading screens. Yeah. The camera is always following him. There's no UI. They want it to be this completely stuck in the game thing, right? Yeah. And so during his video of announcement of, like, God of War, like, he's getting big awards for this game and everyone's loving it, he's cutting open this giant box, which I assume has a statue of Kratos in it or something. Yeah. And he's saying, so this is something I've been working on a long time. I wanted this game to be great. I'm glad that people are loving it. I was first thing, but I have to pay respect to the giants, right? First thing that inspired me, King Kong, the game of the movie. And he like freeze frames. He's like, what? King Kong, the game of the movie? What is that? It's a licensed game? The guy who just made this like culturally defining game is thanking some licensed game. It's like, what is this game? I have to play this game. And so then he shows himself playing, and he's like, how do more people not know about this game? And he shows a quote from the developer. It was Ubisoft that made this game, actually. So it's this French guy, and he's like, we've never made a licensed game before, and we wanted to give the movie the respect it deserves and make the best game possible we could. And so in the game, he showed a moment where the centipede is skittering along the floor, and then it goes up on the wall, and he's like, whoa, and he throws a spear at it, and so the centipede gets hit by the spear, and it folds, because it's a centipede, it folds around the spear and falls to the floor, and he's like, whoa. And then the centipede hops up, even though it had completely ragdolled, it hops up and starts crawling towards him. He's like, whoa, and he hits it again, and it dies. It's like, that's amazing, I gotta show my friend. So then he plays the section again, and the centipede comes along the floor towards him, and he stabs it and it dies. So wait, that wasn't a scripted event. It simulates the physics of all, so you can just knock things around with the physics. And it can crawl on the walls without any sort of scripting. And they put this in the game, and this is some game nobody's ever heard of. And he showed another example where he's like, okay, you got a spear, whatever. You got a little fire over here. Okay, there's a bug. You stab the bug with a spear. You throw the spear into the bushes. A bunch of raptors are attracted by the scent of the bug. They go over to the bug. You take another spear. You light it on fire. You throw it into the grass. The grass burns. All the raptors die in the fire that you lured them to the bug. It's like, there's no tutorial. It's just, he figured it out, right? And so imagine you're playing that game, and someone's like, oh yeah, a tutorial pops up when you're about to see the centipede. If you hit it, it will ragdoll, but then it will unragdoll. Because you don't need that. But a lot of games, they do something close to that. And so that's obviously too far.
Anyways, Prey's a good game.
It's on a very long list.
Yeah, I'm just surprised. Like, it's a weird cultural game because it's quite fun. But people are like, oh, you remember Prey? Like, I watched Rithian play through all of it, actually. He played through it twice. And I remember watching that, and now I'm playing it, and I don't remember everything, but I'm still like, oh, this is a really good game.
And maybe spoilers are fine for it, right? Like, maybe I'd be like, oh yeah, what? Because I know there's a glue gun in the game. That's basically, it's this big thing, right? But
that's the second big thing.
Right. I don't know the first big thing, so it's fine. But
it's like the main thing of the game, the first big thing.
Yeah, like I said, I've tried to avoid most of the stuff about the game. Me and immersive sims, I don't want to know anything.
It's weird that you know there's the glue gun, but you actually don't know the biggest thing about the game, which was the thing that made the game like mildly like, oh, this game has that. It's the game with that in it.
Yeah, the glue gun.
Glue gun's pretty cool.
No, I think the glue gun is like, the reason I know about it is probably some speed running thing or something.
Yeah, it breaks linearity.
Like they basically said, you know what? We're going to give you something, you can ruin everything.
Yes, that's basically the glue gun.
Because remember, I don't know if you remember when I got Big and Small Grandpa's Leftovers.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
That game, it was the first game, maybe? Or, no, because Vangers could do this like 20 years before. It was the first modern game to have like a sort of sandbox physics system where you could do anything you wanted. Oh, and what was that game called? Red Faction Assaults or whatever. You could like drill through mountains and stuff. It was a third-person shooter. But this game, you had like a gravity gun, you had a slicey tool, and you had a jetpack, and you could chop apart the terrain and rebuild it to basically solve platforming puzzles.
Yeah.
And it was this technological feat of the time. And I got it like, it's not a very fun game, but it was a technical marvel.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind when I played it. Now, there's been other games like Half-Life where it's a technical marvel and it's a great game.
Yeah.
And then Dark Messiah of Might and Magic and Prey is kind of in that list. And so I love that kind of game. In theory, I find that it's the same with Metroidvanias. In theory, Metroidvania is my favorite genre. I have never played one that doesn't frustrate me to... I get so angry and so fed up. I beat Cave Story the other day, and it was hollow feeling, but I did it.
I don't think Prey would frustrate you.
Because Dishonored frustrated me for a different reason. I was in pain because of my hands. I was just like, oh! And I haven't beat Dishonored yet. I haven't beat the tutorial.
Dishonored and Thief.
Dark Messiah of Might and Magic.
Dishonored and Thief. Dark Messiah is a different case altogether.
I think I like Thief better than Dishonored from the little I've played of both so far.
Yeah, so they're very different than Prey.
The same guys, though.
Yeah, it's the same guy. I think Prey is the best modern one they've done.
Wasn't the Deus Ex Metropolis or whatever supposed to be pretty good?
I haven't played Deus Ex.
Like the new Deus Ex? Or like, not the new one, but the one before the new.
Yeah, I haven't played it. I watched a little bit of it played, but I haven't played that one.
Because the developer...
The Deus Ex one, my problem with the Deus Ex is it has a established character, like a established, like, Corvo is kind of this vague established guy, and same with the thief from Thief.
Yeah.
Like, he's this vague established guy.
Garrett's pretty established, actually, especially in the later games. But yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
they're this vague sort of person.
Yeah.
Whereas Deus Ex is a personality.
Yeah.
And that just and it's much more story driven and much more personality.
It's funny you say that, because it is Deus Ex, right? Where in the first game, they had the voice actor read in the most deadpan voice they could, so that you could choose different options and pretend you were supposed to imagine he was getting angry or happy based on how you wanted to play the game.
Yeah.
Because it's meant to react to you, right? Like, if you keep going to the women's bathroom, eventually HR calls you in and they're like, stop going into the women's bathroom.
That's just what I observed from like the later game of Deus Ex.
How would...
Maybe it might be the problem that immersive sims like these, like Thief and
Vampire the Masquerade, sort of?
Vampire Masquerade avoids this.
Okay.
It avoids it completely because you get to create your own character entirely. But like you said with Garrett, like, that's the second game avoids it because of what they did with it. But like, you play Morgan in Prey.
Right.
So if Prey 2 came out and you played Morgan, it's like playing Morgan Freeman. It's like, you're the Freeman, you did all this.
Right.
And so in immersive sim, if the character gets too much personality from game to game and become this legendary figure, I don't want to play the game as much.
Right.
Especially if I'm playing the second game, I never played the first one. Like, maybe if I play through them, it works better. But if I play Thief 2 and don't play Thief 1, and then I play Thief 3, and it's like,
so even
this is Garrett. He's this intimidating guy. He has all this stuff and baggage.
So even if it has like branching storylines, you don't want to...
Because the second game has the assumption of them. And so that's why...
is Portal an immersive sim?
Not really. Yeah. But, like, one of the things that Morgan Freeman has, which is hilarious about him, and this is why he works opposed to the other things, is he's just some guy who never speaks. He is just this, like, brain-dead guy who's just trying to survive. And his actions that he has taken, like, every action Morgan Freeman is taking is him trying not to die. Gordon, sorry. Yeah. Gordon Freeman. He's just trying not to die. That's literally everything he's doing is him trying to live.
Right.
And because he's taken these actions, he saves the world.
And so if they're an established character, right? Yeah. What bothers you? Do you feel like you're obligated to play in a certain way?
Yeah, I don't get to be that character. Like, I have to do stuff more along who they are.
Okay, so when you play like The Witcher 3, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Do you not like having to be Geralt, or what's your thought on that?
I think Geralt's so well written, and I know who he is, that I can be him, and I like who Geralt is, so I can pretend to be him.
Because I don't know if this is how most people play The Witcher 3, but for me, when I chose like the dialogue options, it's almost me playing in line with my interpretation of Geralt. Like, it's like I'm trying to be the most Geralt I can be, rather than me trying to choose what happens, in a way, if that makes sense. It's like, what would Geralt say? He would say this.
Well, Geralt's also not The Witcher's not an immersive sim.
And so it's important for immersive sims, particularly.
Yeah, it's important for immersive sims.
Okay, what about like Breath of the Wild? Is that an immersive sim?
No.
Okay. I mean, it's obviously not, but it's got a lot of elements of an immersive sim.
No, you're Link. Okay,
what about Skyrim? That's got elements of an immersive sim.
Yeah, but you're the Dovahkiin, and there's so many different Dovahkiins. Like, if the Elder Scroll games, you were John Dovahkiin from like Morrowind, next one.
Yeah.
I would actually have a problem with playing John Dovahkiin. That's one of the reasons why I don't think I'll ever be able to play Dragon Age 2.
Okay.
Is you have to be Hawk.
Right, yeah.
And the thought of being Hawk sickens me, actually, especially when I've played Dragon Age 1.
He's meant to be like different based on his class and stuff.
You can have a male and female Hawk, much like you can have a male...
Shepard in a Mass Effect.
Shepard, and in Prey you can have a male and female Morgan.
Right. And so in Mass Effect, let's say, would you be against being Shepard, even though there's like branching?
Yeah, actually, Shepard kind of turns me off Mass Effect. Like, the character Shepard kind of turns me off it. That's probably that's one of the reasons I've never played Mass Effect, is because of Shepard.
Okay, Planescape Torment. You play as the Nameless, I think is his name. That's a weird... Have you played Planescape Torment?
No, I sort of know about it.
I haven't played it either. but I'm curious what your thoughts on it vaguely are, because the idea is that, well, you're immortal. You can't die, no matter what you do. And also, you've lost all your memories, so you're sort of free to do what you want. But you are an established person, and the goal of the game is... Have you played Disco Elysium?
No.
Okay, because that's this very similar sort of plot, actually. You're trying to figure out who you are, but you are an established person. You're just trying to figure out who that person is.
So, those, again, aren't immersive sims as much.
No, they're RPGs.
So, here's the thing with the RPG, actually. This is one of my problems with Larian's latest 2 games. Even though I love them both a lot.
Divinity Original Sin 2 and Baldur's Gate 3.
Baldur's Gate 3. So, in Divinity 1, you are source hunters. You come onto the shore. You have 2 source hunters.
Yeah.
And their personalities jive off each other, and they have this fun interaction. And through the game, you slowly find out that they are the guardians of Pandora's box.
Yeah.
And they do things that most people can't. Like, their skill set is actually, like, nothing special. They don't have any special superpower. They don't have any super ultimate that they only have. But the characters that come along, like, it's at RPG, the other guys come along, but it's like, you are people of destiny.
Well, lore-wise, they have infinite source.
Yeah.
Like in the second game, you have 3 source.
Yeah.
So these people are infinitely more powerful.
Yeah. But, like, in Dragon Commander, you can turn into a dragon.
Yeah.
They don't have that superpower. So, but that's fine, because the story...
Did Larian do Dragon Commander?
No.
No. They did Divine Divinity, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, the story... They might have done Dragon Commander, actually. The company might have reformed. I don't know how Divinity and Larian's history with it's gone. I don't know if they picked up again, or...
No, they started the Divine Divinity series. That was them.
Oh, then they did Dragon Commander.
Okay, yeah.
The company I just reformed or something.
No, I think it's the same people.
Really?
Yeah.
Sven just been carrying on for ages.
Been doing, yeah.
And he finally released a really good game. Like, the other games are okay. And then
the ending to Norvo's complete history of RPGs is really cool, where he's saying, like, this genre has slowly died and it's become less and less popular as it's been replaced by more games like Assassin's Creed Origin just taking its systems for themselves, and he goes on and on about it. Is what I would say, if not for Larry.
Yeah, so anyways, Divinity 2 comes out. It's much more successful than Divinity 1, which is great.
Yeah.
It's a fun game. But you have the Red Prince, you have Thane, you have Infant Ben the Mizzler,
Yeah.
you have that dwarf captain, you have the Needle, and you have the Mad Singer.
Yeah.
And then you have your Source Hunters. Now, they do have unique special abilities if you choose to play them, but you can also play as these origin characters. And you're all God-woken.
Yeah.
Like, you and all your companions are God-woken. And part of it's interesting because you sort of decide who's the God-woken's going to be, and your unique character has their own story, or you can have the God-woken. But in that case, they're like, it gives you the freedom that Baldur's Gate 1 did, of you can create your own character. But in Baldur's Gate 1, you are the ball spawn. And you are the main character, and everything's revolving around you. And the story is about that destiny of the ball spawn. Whereas with the Godwoken, you're one of several Godwoken, that's kind of the tale. But there's so much focus, so much work put into the Red Prince and Thane and all these other characters.
Yeah.
And something about that just doesn't settle right with me, because it feels like it takes away from your ability to be a character.
Could it also be the fact that no matter which characters you choose, you're always missing out on something?
There's that there as well. Definitely.
Because there's there's only 4 playable characters. And...
Well, but even then, if I'm playing Baldur's Gate, I can get Minsk with me. And if I have Minsk, that means I will not get the Red Wizard of Thay.
Yeah.
And so I'll miss out on that. But that's fine, because they're not main characters. Whereas the Larian characters are main characters, even though they're support characters. You know how a book, right? So Harry Potter has Harry, and he's the main character. And Ron and Hermione are basically main characters, but they're still support characters, super uber support characters. So that's Baldur's Gate 1.
Yeah.
So,
but
Beyonders has the main character, Jace.
Like the guy that gets eaten by the hippo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And has the girl.
Yeah.
And it switches back and forth between their perspective. That's Divinity 2.
Right. Or yeah, okay. Or something like Game of Thrones is like
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3, where
Yeah.
it's a bunch of main characters.
And then again, Baldur's Gate 3 does that as well. Is you're the character, but then there's all the people are drooling over because that's so sad. Baldur's Gate 3 really is made by a good studio, and they release semi-good-looking male and female characters in a good game, and people haven't experienced that for so long. Everyone's simping over their heroes, and it's like, get a hold of yourselves. It's like those men that haven't seen of women. They're out on sea, and they start like making out with porpoises. Besides that,
Yeah.
but those are, you can play as them, and they're main characters, and their stories can be more in depth than yours because you're just a guy who happens to have the same problem as them. You're not the ball spawn. You're just,
And you'd rather be unique in some way.
yeah, in an RPG like that.
Okay, so have you played Icewind Dale?
Yes.
Do you like or dislike the fact that nobody is anything? You're
I
just
really-
some random adventurers.
Oh, I like about Icewind Dale partly is there's actually is no NPCs. You have to make all of them.
Yeah,
And so it's sort of it's a different game kind of to those other ones.
because I was kind of disappointed because in Baldur's Gate you get Minsk, and
Yeah.
Minsk is this massive personality,
Yeah.
and Jaehaer is this massive personality. But there's also this relief of you don't have to choose, like, okay, I have to, because in Baldur's Gate, the standard play is you kick out the Necromancer and the Thief the moment you find Jaehaer and Khalid,
Yeah.
right? And because they suck.
Yeah.
And you probably don't get Irwin in your party.
Even though he's amazing.
Yeah, and you probably don't get the cleric in your party because he's an old man that you meet halfway through the game.
Yeah.
And
You don't get the paladin.
but they're neat characters,
Mhm.
and so there's that relief in Icewind Dale of my characters are my characters, and that's that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Icewind Dale has the downside of there is no Minsk-like personality. There is no.
Well, and that's what I think was so good about Divinity 1, actually, was those unique characters were your main characters interacting with each other. Because and they had personalities. They talked to each other, and their personalities got influenced by the choices you made, and they were still personalities. And then you sort of had the personality, like the side characters were okay, but they were
you
support.
call him my boy Johan, okay? He's
Johan,
perfect.
Johan and Wolgraf were really good support characters, but the stories we made about them didn't come from their overacting. Like, they had a bit of acting, but the
Yeah,
story
I guess
made...
Wolgraf in the story wasn't a zombie thing.
Yeah, he's not a zombie,
And-
and he can't charm anyone.
Yeah,
But we made the story, like, Wolgraf was a rogue, and he could seduce giant spiders. And your wizard, who hated demons...
Johan. Yeah.
Johan had terrifying spell range, and he could teleport things and call down lightning and death.
Yeah.
And he's an amazing healer who was basically like the party mum.
And
or
he
whatever.
was tankier than everyone but the actual tank.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we had the psychopathic fire poison mage
Yeah.
who was...
But that was just my character.
Yeah, by saying they were anti-romantic.
Right.
And they were like a realist, and they're super harsh. Then my character was a hopeless romantic who was super kind and compassionate. And
Yeah, it was funny because I don't typically like playing as evil characters, but the thing about Divinity Original Sin 1, which 2 couldn't even do, was you couldn't break number 1.
Yeah.
It was just fascinating to try killing people and see what would happen. Because the game worked no matter what you did. And it wasn't like I was just going on murdering sprees. It was more like, oh, the guards caught us sneaking into the town. I guess we have to kill all the guards now.
yeah. I mean, Divinity 2 actually...
Well, they had patches that fixed it, but remember we actually broke the game and
Yes.
had to restart.
Yeah.
Because we did something in the wrong order.
Baldur's Gate only has... Well, the children are unkillable, which annoys me.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah. Children are unkillable. But besides them, there's only one truly unkillable character. And that's the God of Death. And you can try to kill him, and he just doesn't care.
So, okay, have you played the Ultima games?
No.
Okay. In Ultima, from Ultima 5 to 7, I think it is, the main character is you.
Yeah.
Like, basically, the wizard contacts you through your computer and
Yeah.
pulls you into the game. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's fine.
You get to forge your own... But then maybe you're not... Like, being evil doesn't feel like an option.
Well, you can go full Thomas Covenant on it.
It's not real. I can do what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's more of... Like, I just... When it comes to immersive sims, like, as I said, it works with Core Vote because Corvo's just like he's kind of this scary bodyguard, but he's no one special.
Yeah.
But then he becomes this supernatural entity of terror. And then the second game you play as his daughter. And everyone knows not to mess with Corvo's daughter because he's the supernatural entity of death. And now this is his daughter. But you get to forge her story, and that's just like the history attached on. Whereas if the first game and the second game you're Corvo, like, what, do they Samus Aran you and you lose all your abilities?
Or they do The Witcher and you get hit on the head again.
Yes.
Forget everything. Yeah.
You know, like in Thief, it's probably...
Well, I mean,
He's
it's not about his skill ever,
Yeah.
right? It's about his gear.
Yeah.
And if you
He
get in a
loses
fight, you
money
lose.
all the time.
Yeah. And if you get in a fight, you lose.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't change. He's not a master swordsman or anything.
I've won sword fights.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It took ages.
I don't believe this is possible. Okay, Dark Messiah, Might and Magic, you are a defined character, I think, who
Yeah.
has like a devil talking to you.
Yep.
And
You're the
does,
son of Satan.
and does that like...
Spoilers, but you're the son of Satan.
You gotta spoil things. I mean, I don't care, but I mean, really, why do you gotta spoil things? What do you get out of it?
I don't know. But he is a character that can forge his own path, and it's very... But he's again, very nebulous.
I'm bad about this too, but let's make this a day of remembrance where we think before we spoil.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna try anyways. I'm gonna fail, but I'll try. I think sometimes.
Sorry, here, let me mind... I was minding you there where you were being kind of like dismissive and jokey about it, and so I just continued with that. That's what I interpreted.
With what? Sorry.
With Dark Messiah, where you said there's a devil in him. And...
No, like the succubus lady
Yeah.
is like bonded to you or something,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were like being jokey about that, so I continued it.
But yeah. Sorry. What are your thoughts on that game, though?
Oh, yeah, he's a nebulous character that you just can't play.
Right. So as long they can be a defined person, as long as they don't like talk about them, sort of.
Yeah, like your own actions make the story rather than this is Geralt. Geralt is this and he is that, and this is everything about him. Like if Geralt was an immersive sim, I'd probably have trouble playing him.
Okay. Outer Wilds an immersive sim?
I don't know what Elder Wilds is, and I'm stuck. I don't know how to.
I am willing, off air, of course, to give you hints if you wish. If you don't wish, that's fine too. But not on air, because even the kind of game is kind of
I just have no idea what to do.
you gotta believe. But I guess you're very vaguely. If your role is something as vague as like, well, without exploiting the game, adventure, let's say, like classic video game.
You're a frogman on a spaceship.
No. Seriously, like everything about this game is.
I think that...
No, like, I didn't know that there was even spaceships in the game. It blew my mind, seriously. I was just...
Really?
Yeah, like, it blew my mind. I was like...
I think most people know.
I didn't. They say go in blind when you play it. I try to go in blind.
It's literally on the Steam...
Yeah, I didn't look at the pictures. I didn't read the description. I went in blind.
Okay.
I gave a company $20 and I played blind.
Okay.
Because they said play blind. And I was like, this game is terrible. Why is he so slow? You just waddle around.
Played Outer Wild for like 10 hours. And you didn't even know what the game
Well, so you know, I have this very strict thing, right? Where I play a game for 19 minutes, turn it off, do something else, come back, play for 19 minutes, you know, and I don't know. I think the game could use a save system. It's just really... a different save. Yeah. No, I've already said two. But it's like, why am I thinking of Zelda? Well, I guess it's a very similar game to Zelda, actually. Like, Zelda... Okay, yeah, Link is an interesting character. I like Link a lot because there's a reason he's muted, so you can sort of project yourself onto him.
Yeah.
And it is almost a shame that in Breath of the Wild, he...
Exclaims.
Well, the story is that he's a mute. Like, they actually make that a characteristic. Instead of...
No, he's really shy.
Yeah. But I like the idea of people just being able to read his mind, sort of. Like, just through, like, pantomimery. They're like, oh, yeah, you got...
Well, they kind of do that.
Yeah, because he doesn't actually make a noise, I guess. He's always just like, yeah. Oh, you know, Hero is the same, right? Like, he doesn't talk. He's just like, hip, from a Dragon Quest,
Yeah.
and it's the same voice actor for both.
Really?
Like that guy, he's got life figured out. He's like, I will
He gets paid to grunt.
I voice act 2 mute characters.
I get paid to grunt.
It's like, yep, yeah.
Well, the Zelda games, unfortunately, like those Zelda games kind of almost ruined Link.
Breath of the Wild,
No, the Zelda games.
like this. Oh, the CDI ones.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
that-
they kind of, because that is a part of Link's personality now, unfortunately.
But it's
And like he should be more of Link's like.
that's a question. Okay, so Nintendo is very protective of their IPs these days, like Mario, and because they don't want the Mario image to get tainted with Mario, like with a machine gun mowing down people or something like that, right?
Like the Mario Brothers Mario
Yeah,
movie.
they don't want to taint Mario, and now when Steamboat Willie became open source, I guess you could call it, when he became
Free ride.
free from copyright, there was a lot of people doing disturbing imagery with him just for the, like, there's a video game, it's basically the Oregon Trail but with boats, and you could like make him walk the plank and stuff, and hang him, and it's actually very funny in the context of the game because it is Oregon Trail, right? So people die all the time, like Mickey Mouse gets dysentery, that sort of thing. And so that is a bit disrespectful in a way. I've never liked the Mickey Mouse character, but that is disrespectful in a way. But on the other hand, like you're talking about the CDI games with Link, I don't think about that when I think about Link.
So
it's sort of headcanon in a way. Just
the thing with Disney, and this is why I think it's completely okay that this happened to Steamboat Willie, is they are responsible for most of the copyright laws that America and Canada and like the
rest of the world
has to deal with.
So people were celebrating that rather than
that they were defeated finally, like it finally,
rather than just abusing the character for the sake of this is what happens when you get your hand on a character.
Yeah, they were trying to make it as horrible as possible because they wanted to get back to Disney for 90 years.
Right.
Of saying you can't touch our stuff. It's like, haha, we finally can.
Okay, but let's say it's funny though because Disney let it happen, right? So it's actually encouraging them not to do it, let it happen again.
I don't know if they could have pushed it any further. Like 90 years after death, like 120 years is like no, we're.
I don't know.
Like if they try to push again, it might like pushing it again might make. Why is it 90 years? Why don't we do like 50 years after death? And why not 50 years after creation?
I don't know. I think they could have gone for it doesn't end, or you can inherit it or something.
At that point in time as well, Disney...
Like, they didn't care.
Yeah, well, they didn't care, but also if they had tried to do something, Disney isn't very popular right now, and like they're having a lot of trouble with law in Florida and the United States in general, so it's just not a good time for them to try lobby and push any laws right now anyways.
Right. Yeah, it could be. But let's say someone takes... Like Robin Hobb, right? She hates fan art, fan fiction.
Yeah.
She completely hates it. She likens it to rape. She says, or sexual assault. You're basically taking these characters and you're doing something to them that was never meant to be done to them. You're abusing them horribly. You're taking this being born of my mind and you're raping it with your own mind.
IOC, don't steal.
Yeah. And so she hates it, right? So her copyright, let's say it expires, and enough years go by, someone's going to do something that she wouldn't like with him, like maybe instantly, right? Like, because she doesn't want you to do anything that's out of character for him, and she has a very specific idea of what Fitz does. So you do something that's out of character that's horrible for her. Does that taint the character? Because I personally, I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either.
No. Because, like with the CDI link, I'm like, yeah, whatever. But on the other, do you think it's gross, though, if you see that happening to the character? Do you go like, oh, I wish they hadn't done that to that character? Like those, the Winnie the Pooh blood pouring from the mouth sort of monster.
Well, I just found one of the things, like you said, the headcan thing.
I think I dislike the people that made it, not Winnie the Pooh himself.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's that. So, there's two cases that I've talked about this. Custodes getting beaten up by Harlequins.
Yeah.
It's this sort of, like, forever canon taint on Custodes. And people who don't like the Custodes, because Custode fans are massive shonen, isekai, whatever fans of the, like, there's this trope, like, I like the best guys of the best guys. Like, I like the golden guys and they're super powerful. And it's like, yeah, but your silly bananas got beaten by dancing clowns.
Isn't the whole Black Library thing, though, like, you can actually literally ignore any story you don't like?
Yeah, well, but still people will try to use that against them. But the other thing, which a lot of people don't, is Ether M.
Right. Yeah.
like Samus, who
But did that taint Samus or did that taint the creators of Other M?
well, it taints the creator of Other M, but it's annoying when people go, oh, but Samus is a whiny baby. Look at Other M,
Right.
and they try to use that because let's look at Samus's personality. Psychopathic.
Is she? Like, is her personality like she saves the animals in the very first game?
So she is a
and she makes friends with a little baby Metroid in the second game.
she's a bloodthirsty mercenary.
Is she thirsty for blood, or is she just? I mean, she's a bounty hunter, so
she's a bounty hunter. Like, none of her enemies she fight look human, so that's one of the things you could say against it. But like,
she kind of like eats the things she kills, right? Like,
okay, so a soldier of fortune,
yeah,
who goes around fighting aliens,
yeah,
and space pirates, and space pirates are mostly aliens. And she does have a soft spot for little animals. She does save them. She likes them, and she likes cute things. But she is actually super serious. She gets the job done. She, like, faces nightmares. Like, one of her enemies is called Nightmare.
Yeah.
And he's creepy as all hell.
Yeah.
And she constantly fights horrible things. Her main love interest, who's Captain...
It's Kraid?
Yeah, Kraid?
No, Kraid's the giant crocodile with the three holes in his chest.
Not Kraid. Not Kraid. The guy who always gives her orders.
Right, yeah.
Who's like her best friend and her love interest. In Metroid Fusion, it's really dark because he's dead.
Mm.
And it's an AI, Replica? Like the AI.
That thing that crawls around in Dread?
No, like the app, the Replica app was originally that dead person's like son.
Right, yeah.
That's basically what he is he's the AI commanding her.
Mm.
And she's following his orders, and then it slowly gets a personality back, and it's like him, but still an AI.
Right.
So it's like this really dark, sad story there. But you have this character, super serious, very tough, no nonsense. She likes cute things, though. Then you like have Ever M, and she's like this whiny, crying, useless.
Well, it's exploring like PTSD, right? Like she's up against Ridley, who murdered her family in front of her, and
yeah, but we've seen her beat his shit in so many times without caring.
Well, maybe she's crying behind the mask. Like, the game's, you're far away. It's 2D, you know?
And also, she's violated that guy's orders so many times, and she has to, like, wait for him. And
well, that part is a bit more, like, she's a very independent person, obviously,
yeah.
based on the game. I don't think... I mean, she teamed up with Pikachu as well, and Pikachu likes friendly people, so...
Yeah, and she likes cute things.
Yeah.
And so that's why she teamed up with him, because he's cute.
Well, also, they have to work together to survive.
Yeah, but it's also... He's a cute little animal. She's going to help him. She likes cute little animals.
Nintendo had full control of every character but, like, Sonic and Snake, right? So, is Subspace Emissary canon to all the games?
Yes.
Yes.
No, Subspace Emissary is canon to what Smash Bros. Is, which is a guy playing with little figurines.
Right. It's pretty, like...
Tense story you came up with.
Yeah. People being separated from each other and...
Like, the world's getting destroyed.
Or is he Master Hand and they're, like, fighting him?
Well, he is Master Hand, but it's fun to have them fight him.
Is this sort of like a Toy Story situation where they're trying
No, it's not Toy Story, but he's so involved in his role play that it gets meta, right? And so he is Master Hand, but his toys fight back against him controlling their destiny.
And did he have, like, seizures when he was young? And so they gave him a lobotomy, so he has alien hand syndrome, and that's Crazy Hand?
No, it's just, you're playing, right?
Yeah.
And so you have Master Hand there. And then you have Crazy Hand, that's your left hand, so you'd be a little more crazy. So it's like a different entity with it, because you use your right hand more, but then Crazy Hand shows up.
Do you think that the person playing Smash Bros. Is actually in a coma?
No, it's just a kid in his bedroom.
And because they wanted to... Because they saw a Ho-Oh.
No. Smash Bros. Stories is a kid in his bedroom playing with figurines from his favorite video game franchise.
Right.
And making them fight.
And is Galeem, like, the son?
Galeem's like some paper mache thing he made because he's like in his 20s now. He's trying to recapture his childhood wonder.
Right. But his childhood wonder kills it. Something.
Well, there's a bunch of Master Hands, so he gets all his friends involved.
Right. And so Rob, is Rob an actual Rob?
Yeah, it's his Rob toy.
Okay. Like, Robs are quite large.
Yeah.
So are his other toys, like, really big?
No, but you can imagine, like, you can scale things in your imagination.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have a giant Giga Bowser toy, but it's Giga Bowser. Or maybe he does have, like, a really big one he pulls out.
Like, they're amiibos, right? Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, amiibos are literally the toy. Have you seen the intro to the first Smash Bros. Game?
Yeah. Well, not the first one.
Is it the second one that has that?
That's Brawl that does that.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, that's the third one. Yeah.
But those the amiibos are those.
Now I think Melee has the best intro. It's the one with the herd of Yoshis and whatnot. Yeah. But the best trailer definitely goes to. Okay, well, honestly, it has to go to Smash Bros. Ultimate. But I want it to go to Smash 64, where it's just the four guys in the giant, like, Smash Bros. Character costumes walking through a field, and they're just punching each other. And they're all wearing, like, these giant, like, onesies.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
The ads, sorry. You're talking about ads. Because there's also the intros whenever you launch the game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the intro is the Yoshi thing. Yeah. And then the disc is the Brawl one. Yeah. I think that's all that solved.
Yeah. That's why people are fat.
Yeah. Too much Crazy Hand, not enough Master Hand.
Do Crazy and Master Hand fight? Or I thought they worked together.
Yeah, they work together. Okay, minor spoiler for, it's a major spoiler for something that doesn't really have spoilers, so that's why I'm calling it minor, for World of Light.
Yeah.
At one point, you play as Master Hand.
Yeah.
And
so
you fight like everything else. I'm not sure if you fight Crazy Hand, though. Yeah. But it's very cool.
Oh, why can't they just do another Subspace instead of World of Light?
Yeah, Subspace is great. Or even just adventure mode like they had in Melee, where you just go through like Mario World with any character you want. That was fun, like playing as Fox and stomping on Goombas. That was fun.
Well, that's basically what Subspace was. It just evolved.
Except it had a story.
Yeah.
Because it was just a time trial in Melee, right? You you beat it in 2 minutes, you get Luigi, and then and then you fight a boss, and then you take another platforming section. It was basically World of Light with platforming sections in between. Yeah.
I remember the first time I played Subspace Emissary. I was at the game shop's no longer there. I was at EB Games, and they had those demo games you could play.
Yeah.
So they actually had you would load in as Fox, and you do the first mission of Subspace Emissary as Fox, and that's the demo they had, and I was playing that. It's like, this is such a cool game, and I had no idea. I thought it was the Fox game actually, and then
like Star Fox Adventures or something. Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, this is actually Subspace Emissary when we got the Wii later and played it.
All right, wrap it up there.
Sure.
Oh, actually, before we go, I was thinking, I have that weird thing about saying thank you for watching if you're thankful for watching, but I'm not sure if I am, right? But I was thinking, and I don't know if this is something that should become routine, but if someone listens, to whatever this ends up being, 3 hours, let's say, of you talking, and they're like, hey, that's cool, or they're at least they're like, okay, they go away with some thoughts of their own, right? That is kind of an honor at the very least, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it would be appropriate to say that, those listening, like, they honor us by listening. Like, you honor me by listening, right? I don't know. There's a YouTuber who, every video he starts with, I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you do well soon. It's this very nice statement, right? But he says it every time, and it almost becomes this get it out of the way thing. Like, all right, before we get into that, I hope you're doing well. I hope if you're not, I hope you do well soon. It becomes his catchphrase, and it
also with you.
It becomes But on the other hand, I think when you say, like, how's it going, and people say, oh, I'm doing good, that is a sort of little ritual of just bonding. Like, it doesn't have to be more than that. And you are sort of reminding each other, all in all, things are pretty good, no matter what's going on, right? So I don't know. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but I don't know what your thoughts are. Like,
well, you've honored us by listening, Mugwow.
No, I'll be, yeah, because if it becomes like this thing to say, then it is sort of weird, right? But if it is just this genuine, like, and that's where the thank you for listening comes from as well, in a way. It is saying, I guess, it is a different way of saying you've honored me by listening. I think that's what the thank you for listening means. But I think there's a distinction, and it depends person to person, right? Like, some people might not be honored, some people might be thankful. Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about it. But if there is
well, so from my personal experience, when I wrote a really long script and it's gone through a lot of editing, and it was a really long recording process. Like, it takes me 3 hours to record, and I've been working on the script for another 3 hours, so it's like a 6-hour process, and I put a lot into it. Actually, sometimes when I'm finally done, I do get quite emotional, and so
you are thankful.
Yeah.
You say thank you. Yeah.
So if you're thankful, then you can be thankful. And if you're like, oh, that was that podcast done, I don't feel like being thankful if someone listened all this way now, then you don't have to say it.
And nobody listened to me for 5,000 years, and I swore I would kill the next person that listened to this podcast.
Okay.
Like that genie.
Yeah, no, just Canada Online Arms Act.
Yeah, but someone has to actually have their mind changed, right? That was part of the stipulation. Oh yeah, we read the Canada Online Harms Act, except we didn't because it turned out it was 104 pages long and half of it was in French. So just send me to jail. I don't want to read 104 pages. No, the one thing I was concerned about was the requirement for internet companies to keep records of everything that their customers have ever done or searched. Not just for privacy reasons, but also I can't imagine the internet providers wanting to do that without costs going up like crazy, because they need crazy server space to handle all that.
And how they would handle those costs is to sell that information.
Well, or let's say they're not allowed to sell it, right? Yeah. That's still a massive privacy risk, because someone hacks that. Suddenly you have the search history of everyone they've ever served. So it's a privacy risk either way, even if they try to be good about it. So that part alone I didn't like, and that was just a tiny portion. Yeah, 20 pages of it was just definitions. I don't know if they're new definitions or what, but yeah.
I feel like it's honestly a strategy to make it so painful to read that you don't.
That you just, or you get too tired to catch the loopholes.
The legalese, like Apple's agreement being like 100 pages long or whatever when you got the iPod.
Yeah, it seems like there needs to be a limitation of like 20 pages or something.
Well, I kind of hope someday there'll be a court case where one of these, like a video games users thing or whatever, someone violates it, right? And they get taken to court, like so they get sued for it, and the person doesn't back down. They get taken to court, and the judge of that case looks at like how long this user agreement is, and he goes, "Bullshit!" And he taps his gavel, and it's like, all end user agreements must be 1 page long and understandable.
Yeah, I'm not reading that. I'm not reading that. Yeah,
it's like, one, honestly, you cannot believe you cannot expect someone to accept this. 2, make it understandable.
Yeah. All right. Well, we gotta wrap it up. But yeah. Well, I guess I've been honored by those listening, so I'll say it this time and try not to make a habit of it. Maybe. But, yeah.
All right. Bye.
All right.